Joan.
Councilor Paul,
Present.
Councilor Edwards,
Present.
Councilor Janik,
Present.
Councilor Edwards,
Present.
Councilor deMedeiros,
Present.
Councilor Burk,
Present.
Councilor Milburn,
Present.
all present.
Consent agenda. Approval of Town Council minutes, July 8th, 2024, regular meeting, July 8th, 2024, executive session, July 22nd, 2024, regular meeting, Councilor Milburn abstains, absent. July 22nd, 2024, executive session, Councilor Milburn abstains, absent. July 31st, 2024, special meeting, August 13th, 2024, regular meeting, Councilor Burk, Edwards, and Paul abstains, absent. August 13th, 2024, executive session, Councilor Burk, Edwards, and Paul abstains, absent. Acknowledge receipts and minutes from boards and commissions and committees. North End and Industrial Business Park Advisory Subcommittee 1, Conservation 4, Open Space and Land Preservation Commission 2, Cemetery 1, Economic Development Commission 1, Dog Park Committee 1, Zoning Board of Review 3, Zoning Board of Appeal 1. Acknowledge receipts of reports, Treasurer Saurette, July 2024, Budget and Revenue Reports. Acknowledge receipt of correspondence, letter from Bonnie Strickman regarding excessive construction noise in residential neighborhood, letter from Nancy Cormier regarding concerns related to open storage ordinance, Town of Charleston, resolution in support of funding for emergency temporary repair of the Charleston Breachway West Wall. Approval to advertise and hire a licensing clerk or replacement position, and approval of tax assessors abatements of $5,662.60. Would any of the councilors like to take anything off the consent agenda? Councilor Janik?
D1, D2, E, and F.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda, the remaining, not including D1, 2, E, and F. Do I have a sec? I do have a second. All those in favor?
Okay, so the letter from Ms. Strickman discussing construction noise in her neighborhood, and I had hoped to get by there today and I didn't make it, but she is talking about blasting that's going on like all day, every day, and very noisy. So I was hoping we could take a look at the ordinance and see if we needed to revisit that.
I did mention it to the town administrator after the last meeting with that we didn't have. He's delayed right now at the airport. He'll be here soon. So maybe Chris can help us.
Okay.
Bonnie, are you here? You've asked to speak. Why don't you do it now since we have it open?
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. First of all, it's not blasting. I think I should correct that. It's jackhammering, because I was sent to the wrong department long ago, and somebody even connected me to the bomb squad, but it's not.
Oh,
Seriously, it's not blasting.
Well, I'm glad we didn't
But
have to
yeah, just
concern
thought
them.
I'd
Yeah.
correct that. But thank you very much. My name is Bonnie Strickman. I live at 17 Vitruvian Lane in Tiverton. I write things down so I don't ramble, so I have another letter.
Sure.
But I attended the last council meeting. There wasn't a quorum, the meeting was canceled, and you kindly agreed to receive the letter I had intended to read. Thank you. So here's the story. 11 house lots are being developed in my neighborhood. Big rocks are excavated on every lot. Directly across the street from me, a house is fully built, and the rocks, which have been excavated several months ago, are being jackhammered by a bulldozer with a giant jackhammer attachment. These rocks are hammered over and over until they are much smaller on site. Then they are dumped into a giant metal dump truck and taken away, load after load, many days, many times. Why? This process has nothing to do with the construction of a new home. This has been going on directly across the street from me for over a month. And are these small rocks then sold to someone else? Are they used for some other purpose? And I have been told this is not quarrying. So later, I actually have a definition which I could read about quarrying. A neighbor called the hammering noise insane. The jackhammering does not happen every day, but there is never any warning. There was actually a pause sometime of last week, and I was almost lulled into thinking I was okay and could tolerate the other terribly unsettling construction disruption. But I know the jackhammering is far from over. There are now 9 lots being worked on with big rocks out of the ground on all of them. I was a professional singer in New York City for more than 30 years. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, see if I can get through this part, and could no longer manage city life. After helping with the development of the intended arts and agriculture aspect of Sandy Woods, I moved to Tiverton to be the first homeowner in the then undeveloped woods behind Sandy Woods. The peace and quiet was medicinal for me. I had been told to minimize stress, doctor's orders. My MS has been thankfully somewhat stable. I have limitations, but I've learned to manage them, often by resting at home. I am deeply troubled by the fact that my legs feel weak and wobbly these past weeks. Every time the jackhammer is operating so violently, my nerves feel like they're being frayed. I'm not sleeping well. I relive and then anticipate the noise and disruption. I swirl in the night, feeling the injustice of this invasion, not just for me, but for other people who might have to endure this in the future. And what can I do about it? It's all terribly stressful. I feel as if the jackhammering has affected my entire nervous system and is making me unwell. I've come to realize that the only way for me to deal with this situation is to be home as little as possible. I offer private voice lessons, and often they are disrupted by the noise. I had been taking my own music lessons and writing music, but I've had to stop. I can't focus, and I do not want to be in my house. My home had always been a place of solace, and now I can't be there. My quality of life has been totally affected. One would hope that kindness and empathy would be enough to have someone recognize that jackhammering rocks in an already existing neighborhood is not a compassionate option. Taking them away to be made smaller off-site should be built into the budget. I understand this is why we need ordinances, but aren't ordinances also intended to protect we who live in this town and not just those developing the properties? Please advise me as to how to proceed to modify the ordinance to not allow jackhammering of the big rocks to make them smaller in an already existing neighborhood. Thank you very much. I have photos, and I even have a 24-second recording if you'd like to hear.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you want to hear
Yeah,
it?
I mean, you
Okay.
bothered doing it, go
Thank-
ahead.
Well, there are many. I tried to pick one for you, but thank you. Here it is, and I'll turn up the volume so you can all hear it.
Put it on the microphone. So have you-
No, that's not it. Hold on. Oops. Oh, no.
It's okay.
Oh, that's the wrong one. Hold on, I'm sorry. Oh, it just recorded me. I see, I just recorded me.
Okay.
Thank you to my neighbors who are here also.
All
That
right,
doesn't
so
even really do it
What
justice.
time does this start?
Well, the ordinance.
No, but what time is he starting? What time are they doing it?
It's different every day.
So what's the earliest? Is that the best way for me to say?
7:30.
Okay.
But so I don't know how much you want me to speak.
No,
There
and
are
what
other
time
people-
does it end?
Every day is different. This person does not tend to go beyond like 5. So
Okay.
it's within the hours, which I now know are every day of the week. I don't know if we all know this, but every day of the week, 7 a.m. until 9 p.m., construction is allowed. So the only thing that's happened now is that on Labor Day morning, a trench was dug by a different bulldozer at that house across the street. So this work hasn't been happening in the past few days. So maybe they can't get in there now, I don't know. But it's the regular construction noise, as you can imagine, the dump trucks and the cement truck, it's so unsettling. But this is really, it's nerve-wracking. This doesn't even do it justice, this little
Well,
24
I
seconds.
can imagine what it's like to have
It's
it.
impossible to be home.
Decimals don't matter, right?
Yeah,
With-
decibels don't matter. I called the police.
Wait,
Sorry.
jackhammering is 130.
Also, Bonnie, several of us seated here tonight,
I'm sorry?
several of us here tonight
Yes.
have to be at the library tomorrow,
Oh, okay. It's
and I
not,
will be sure to stop by.
No,
please come by. I'm across, I don't think it's happening
I
right
went
now.
by.
You're
I
not
heard
going to
it.
hear the jackhammering.
I went by.
It's, to hear the jackhammering? Oh,
Last week.
was it happening?
Maybe I'm reading. Table 130.
I'm trying to think of if it was last week or the week. I went by. There was noise. It sounded, it looked like they were jackhammering,
table?
yes.
The jackhammer person
But it's
actually.
way back. It's
No,
way,
it's right across the street from me. Those are bulldozers.
no.
Okay.
Where they're jackhammering is way back in the development.
Oh, yes,
Okay,
across the street from me.
okay.
And when you said 11 homes, and then you said 9, is that 9 plus 11?
No. Total,
Total?
what I've been
11.
told is the developer has bought 11
11.
lots. 9 of them right now are being worked on in different
I
stages.
went by there a couple of weeks ago. Mike, are you,
He's looking at the.
Like myself?
yeah, Mike Marcello.
So the hours of operation are, as she has stated, you are allowed to remove rock and stone in relation to a development project. And this was, I'm assuming, you said how many lots, how many lots are they building?
I've
11.
heard 11, but
So-
there are right now 9.
I'm assuming that this has received planning board approval, so you are allowed to remove rocks and stone in relation to a development. That's in our ordinance.
But removing it is different than jackhammering it.
Well, removing could be, to get it, to actually get the rocks into a size that you can
I
get into a dump trunk is,
I just,
yeah.
may I approach the bench?
Yeah, of
Okay,
course.
so this is just a sample, and, I should have gone to Staples, but I didn't. So this is kind of what they're turning them into.
Yeah,
It's not the size to be carried away, and this is what they started out looking like, some of them. And there were a lot of rocks, but they're not the size.
So when I had said blasting, I was thinking they had blasted in my neighborhood some years ago, and we did get notice that they would be blasting on these days, but it's a one and done thing, it's not a
Yeah.
continuous, so this
Blasting
is,
is
this is
different.
even worse.
Thank you,
So,
thank you. It's really impossible to be living in your home. And, anyway,
yeah. I'm not sure what can be done.
We'll take a look at it. I mean, look at the noise levels. They certainly shouldn't be operating on the beyond 7 AM and after 9 PM.
they're not doing that, no. And the worker himself, I called the
That's a
company
long time.
myself. They were very nice, but the worker came across to apologize to me, and knowing how awful this is. But I don't understand, and I left my little thing over there, but why is this not, what is the definition of quarrying? These rocks are not being used in the construction.
But they're being either, I'm assuming, I don't know the facts, but I'm assuming that they're being removed from an area where the housing lots are being developed. And that's not, that, there's an exception for that in our ordinance. In other words, you are allowed to remove rocks and stone, which would normally be considered quarrying, as long as it's part of an approved development plan. So if he's got approval, he or she has approval for 11 lots, They can remove rocks to, put the foundations in, grade the yard and whatnot, remove them. And I understand, like, obviously rocks are all different sizes, so they can't, like, if there's a rock the size of this table, they can't remove it because they've got to break it up first to
Yeah.
remove it, so.
Right, but why does every rock then be made small enough to look like what you have on the side of a highway?
Right,
Seems to me
the
they're
riprap,
going
they
to
call
be
that.
taking
Yeah,
these
riprap,
rocks
yeah.
and selling them to someone else,
And they may be doing that.
Yeah.
They actually may be doing that, but
and that's legal.
yes.
That's not quarrying.
That's correct.
Okay,
Because
so
it-
that's what I would like to modify.
Yeah.
That, it seems to me there are places for that to be done,
Mhm.
and they're not to be.
So what are you saying? Bring them to a larger size where they can move it?
Right, I think, so I haven't,
Can I speak up? So,
a neighbor of
You
mine.
can, but,
I'm a neighbor.
all right, could you come to the microphone? And you just have to state your name and your address.
John Lysak, 55 Tiverton. So I'm 3 houses up from Bonnie. I built it there 4.5, 5 years ago. All the stone that I had excavated was hauled off. None of it was jackhammered on site. So I'm just curious why this developer is electing to jackhammer on site in a residential neighborhood rather than haul off like I did.
All right, like Jay said, I'm at a meeting here tomorrow at 9. I'll talk to the building inspector.
Yep.
See if he can go by there and
John?
look. John, have
Yep.
you talked to him?
I have not, but I know, well, I've spoken to John because I built a garage. If you go by my house, 55 Tiverton, you're gonna see the stones that could not be pulled away from my lot. But everything smaller than that was hauled away.
All right.
All right.
Maybe John
Thank
can talk to the contractor and see if we can have them hauled out, not as little as they're being hauled out. Maybe we could do something like that.
They could probably haul 80% of those stones away.
I'll be here at 9 o'clock tomorrow, and I'll go into the office and see if John will go by there. We're all gonna be at the library at 10. Maybe we can meet John there.
All right, perfect, thank you.
Okay?
Can we look at the ordinance and the hours? 7 AM to 9 PM, that's 14 hours. That's-
7 days a week.
7 days,
That's it's 7 days a week. There's not even rest on Sunday.
correct.
So,
Yes. Well,
Or
this has been
Saturday.
this has been a
Saturday.
problem in the past also. Yeah, we can look, and we'll deal with that.
Thank
And
you
I'll
very
try to
much.
put
That,
it
I
on
was
the
trying to
next-
keep things separate, but I was planning to come back about that as well. Thank you.
thank you.
Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
Even if we were to modify, it wouldn't affect this development though, correct?
Well, if we limited,
If you look at the hours, yes.
Okay.
The difficulty is, it's difficult to say you can't remove rock from your property
Right.
when you have an approved plan.
Right.
As you know, we're in litigation over someone who's actually quarrying, and we have told him time and time again that you could actually, if he had a approved plan, he could remove the rock
could do it.
and then build the houses
Right.
in the area, so.
Right.
It's a little difficult, unfortunately, Tiverton's a rocky place, right, so.
Yes. I
But
mean,
I think, again, I can't speak for the developer or the town, but I think reasonable minds can have a meeting with the developer and say, hey,
Yeah.
look, we're getting these complaints, first of all, how long do you expect to be doing
Exactly.
this?
Yes, exactly.
And number 2, is there a way that we can mitigate some of this,
Yeah.
limit the hours and, whatnot? But I think, obviously, this person's developing property within the town. They're gonna need the town's cooperation to get the permits and inspections and whatnot, so we do have a little bit of a stick that we could
Thank
use,
you.
so.
I
and
appreciate it so much. Thank you. Yep, yes,
could you leave your phone number with the
Absolutely.
clerk, and I'll give you a call?
absolutely. And
Or- Yeah.
my rocks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Janik, D2.
D2. So D2 is a letter from the Cormiers, and it is in regard to 6A, which is the public hearing.
Yep.
And I would like to hold that out so that we have that, so we can present that during the
Sure.
public hearing.
And Mr. Cormier,
The Cormiers are here.
right, where are you? There you are. Did you want to wait
Mr.
until we get
Cormier's
to that subject? But
That's pretty soon.
the open forum says water. Is that about this? Well, it's all right. I'll ask you when I do it. It's fine. All right, so we'll pull that out too.
I just had a question. Is this a new position or a vacancy?
Vacancy.
Vacancy, that's what I thought. Okay.
I have a question.
Yep.
advertising for this position?
Seconic Times, classified.
All right.
And the last
F.
one, I had questions on the abatements. These are all the same person, and they're all appeals, and I just was
The
wondering.
tax assessor is here.
I saw him here. Knew I
Isn't
was
that
gonna ask.
convenient? Hello.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi.
So there's 4 of them, they're all the same party.
Correct.
And they're all appeals, but there wasn't anything in here about appeals, like what the appeal was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll easily explain that. So these are 3 lots are unimproved waterfront properties, and the other is their residence. So the residence, there was a slight adjustment based on the limited view that they have in relation to other abutting properties. But the main adjustment was really those 3 waterfront lots. It's always, well, it's my position that until something is proven unbuildable, we consider it buildable. So these have been considered buildable, and we have just been waiting for them to provide any type of documentation to state otherwise. So when they went to the board of review, one of the members insisted that they get a letter from a certified engineer, and so they did. And that engineer's letter came back and did state that, in his opinion, they are unbuildable because of all the limitations that they have on that property.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, if I may, I'm sorry. We had been advertising that tax bills were going out this past Friday. There was a slight delay. They're going to be in the mail either tomorrow or Wednesday.
Thank you. A little off the agenda, but thank you.
Thanks,
It's
Mike.
an announcement. All right, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve D1, 2, E, and F.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Public comment. Al Cormier, would you like to speak now? Just state your name and address. You've been here before.
Yes, I'm Al Cormier, 348 Sousa Road. Directly across the street from Tiverton's only charging station
Yep.
for electric vehicles. I'd like to read from the Rhode Island Tricentenary. Among the
From the
foremost...
Rhode Island, what, Al?
Pardon me?
Where were you reading?
This
Okay.
historical list.
Yep. Okay.
Among the foremost civic developments in North Tiverton, which has proven to be of valuable benefit to the citizens of that community, is the North Tiverton Fire District. The primary reason for establishing such an organization was to create a water system which would afford adequate protection against fire and provide water supply to homes located in North Tiverton. Public-spirited citizens of the North Tiverton met and discussed plans whereby a water system could become a reality and function for the benefit of all the people living in the community. Previously, no one in town had any water supply except that incorporated and raised money necessary for a water system. On April 23rd, 1926, the General Assembly of Rhode Island had granted papers of incorporation to this group of men. Notice the woman didn't get the vote
No.
6 years earlier, so,
Not in 1926.
well, they had just gotten it. And the General Assembly, the group of men known as the North Tiverton Fire District, it had originally been decided that Stafford Pond would supply ample water supply, but after repeated surveys and tests had been made, it was decided to drill a series of wells on the Hambley Farm behind my house.
Yep. Where the water tank is.
Located 1/2 mile north of Mile Road and between Main Road.
Where the water tank is.
So this
Where
is
the water
to-
tank
to-
is,
where the,
yeah.
more or less.
okay. Route 128 and Fish Road. With the entrance on Fish Road, the water is obtained from 30 drilled wells on the average depth of 22 feet, just like my well at 348 Sousa Road. The well field comprises an area of 6 acres. From these wells, the water is pumped to Pecasset Hill Reservoir, 2,000 feet distant, through an 8-inch pipe. The reservoir has a capacity of 1,550,000 gallons and a concrete structure. It's entirely underground. An interesting feature of this water system is that when daylight, at any time until it is drawn from the tap by the consumer, no filtering or repeated chemical treatment has ever been necessary to purify the water, and tests made repeatedly by the Rhode Island Board of Health have always shown an inevitable result. The water flows by gravity through the system. The pressure at the highest point, which is on Main Road and State Avenue, is 37.6 pounds, and at the lowest point to be 136 pounds, which Stonebridge Water District never had. The system has more than 9 miles of pipes throughout the district. All of the services are made through the 1-inch cement line pipes, and the service is metered. When the service was rendered, there were 190 services installed, and at the present time, 325 services are in place. The plant of this water supply was completed in June 1928, and since that time, no aid has been rendered to the town itself towards the support of this project, although there were 65 hydrants installed. At the financial town meeting in March 1935, it was voted to appropriate from the town's funds the amount of $500 towards the support of the water district. This is equivalent to a yearly rental of about $7 a hydrant, which is probably the very lowest rental paid by any community for an adequate fire protection. Agitation is now prevalent to some sort of arrangements made to establish or to continue the water system to the Stonebridge district of town. I'm here to tell you that the Stonebridge Water District is not sufficient, that Stafford Pond is not a reservoir. It is a beautiful wildlife protected area that adjoins our industrial park, and the Stonebridge Water District occupies the land
Yep.
that must be protected by the town, so that the water source at Stafford Pond remains fitting for the waterfowl. And of course, we get all our water from a 6-inch pipe coming from Fall River, the North Watuppa Pond, which Fall River does not ever. Why I'm here about Sousa Road and the development of, particularly where you want to put poles,
Well,
you're
he
gonna
hasn't, but-
you're gonna cut down birch trees. I don't know if you understand science of the birch trees, but they're full of
Yeah,
cardinals
just address me.
and blue jays, and the hummingbirds do a fantastic dance when they get in the birch trees. But it goes all the way up Sousa Road and all the way to the easement, which goes, where the poles go between the Pecasset Reserve, that whole easement, and the only one I know is Rosemary, who's ever been out there. It's, when we went for the Harkins Development Walk, it's ferns, birch, behind my house. We gotta protect the water in town.
Okay.
And another thing, the runoff, if you put the poles up there and you cut down all the birch trees and you tar, and they develop that, the runoff. Carol Herman, my wife, have both stated that when it rains, Sousa Road floods.
Al, your time.
And when you cut down all the birch trees and you blacktop like Vides has done, blacktop all the way to the highway, we're gonna have water issues. Runoff,
I've given you 7 minutes, and it's usually
Sorry,
3.
I'm
No,
sorry.
no, if you want to take another minute, if there's another point you want
no,
to
no,
make.
when you bring up the thought, I can explain to you better how,
Okay,
I just don't understand why you take a residential neighborhood and think you can just blacktop our Secundit Oaks. It was a Secundit Oak forest
thank you.
at one time, before 24 divided this town into a stone bridge in North Tiverton.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you, Al.
No. No, you didn't sign up, and I'm not,
We're gonna be opening the public hearing very shortly.
yeah,
Talk about something on a public hearing, I'd like to talk about public comment.
no, you didn't put anything down.
So who cares?
Jamie, you can do it, because it's,
And then the paperwork should be in the back of the
you could,
building, because
all right, Jamie, you're out of order, and I'm gonna continue.
public comment.
Jamie,
Should be paperwork of
okay, but next time I'll put it over there, but right now, you're out of order, and I'm gonna continue the meeting. Public hearing,
comment that you have not gone to
Jamie,
the agenda on it. It's still an open area.
no, Jamie, you need to sit down.
So you don't believe in listening to the public.
I do, but you
No,
did
you
not.
don't, because you're refusing to hear the public.
Public hearing, discussion and possible vote, approval of proposed amendment to the Tiverton Code of Ordinance. Appendix A zoning, Article 4, District Use Regulations, Section 15, prohibited uses. This proposed ordinance will amend Appendix A zoning, Appendix 5, District Use Regulations, Section 15, prohibited uses to amend Section 15, open lot storage requirements related to public utilities. It would allow for the temporary storage of non-hazard materials and equipment for a permitted public utility project in general commercial and industrial zones for a period not to exceed 18 months with the ability to ask for another 18-month extension. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is anyone here to speak on this subject?
Oops, that was it.
Anyone here? Oh,
Good evening, Gail Lawrence, 108 Long Pasture Way. And I bring several concerns. I guess as I read the ordinance, it seems to include the general commercial, and I question why, when we have a fairly large industrial park area in our town, why we would need to include general commercial. And I guess my thought is that there are some pretty sensitive parcels in general commercial. They're near residential areas, they're off Main Road, and I'm quite concerned about the potential for public safety problems. If I envision a truck with a trailer and poles on the back, I think that that needs a substantial turning radius to make a safe turn. And so I would think it would behoove the town to avoid the potential for them identifying a general commercial lot, say off Main Road or Sousa Road, that could be in conflict with the rest of the residents in terms of the safety of vehicular traffic. So that's one of my concerns about leaving it open, if you will.
I'm
I
just looking
don't,
at general commercial, go ahead.
okay, I
don't wanna
don't,
ignore you.
okay, I don't know whether or not the planning board has reviewed this and has opined on whether we should include general commercial or we should restrict it to the industrial zones in our town.
The planning board did look at this.
Okay, and did they think that,
They agreed, I don't remember, wait, just wait. I don't remember what,
They did send us a letter. The
They
original
did.
ordinance had residential zones, which was taken out. I'm looking for the original letter. I can find that.
Okay,
in a second.
okay.
There were suggested changes suggested by the planning board.
Okay,
Which were then incorporated.
so we don't know whether.
Not all of them.
wait a minute, we'll know in a minute.
Okay, he's checking. Okay. Meanwhile,
Ms. Lawrence
so
always keeps me on my toes.
I'm telling you, I'm trying. I'm trying to keep myself on my toes. So the other thing I would say is that it highly depends upon how this is done on the part of the public utility, because it could be a very unappealing eyesore in our town. And I know that a lot of us are advocating for preserving the beauty of the town in various ways, large and small. And so the last thing I would like to see is something that has a junkyard kind of look to it. And nothing against whatever utility company it is, but very large equipment. And I was curious enough to look online to find out that you can have, oh, where are they? Lots of very large 5-ton and bigger equipment, trench diggers, spreaders, and I wonder if there's a derelict piece of equipment, why wouldn't they just get it to the lot until they could get it somewhere else? And so I think we have to think about the visual appeal or the lack thereof, the aesthetics of something like this. And so if you keep it in the industrial park, it seems you bypass that problem. And the last thing is, I know I don't know whether they'd fence it, light it, if they'd put semi-permanent storage containers on it. Maybe you've had a presentation from them, so you know whether they're gonna put racks for the poles, or they're gonna put up sheds to protect the equipment. If the equipment is out in the open, it presents a problem for curious teenagers who would hop a fence and climb all over that equipment. That's one issue. And another one is that we are all living in a mosquito-borne disease vector environment now. And so any kind of container that they're not routinely checking and emptying becomes a pond for mosquitoes during the seasons in which we would have a problem with that. So off the top of my head, those are the things that come to my mind. So I guess my request to you is, would you please not include general commercial in this revision of the ordinance in the name of public safety, aesthetics, and the quality of life in our town?
Thank you. Mike? Oh, okay. Anyone else from the public? Hi, Susan.
Hi. Susan Anderson, Main Road. I was at the meeting with the planning board when they discussed this, and if I can remember, their recommendation was to only have it in industrial zones.
We're looking it up.
Okay. Which I totally agree with. General commercial should be used for commercial. This, any public utility, it says any public utility may be allowed to temporarily store non-hazardous materials and limited construction equipment associated with an active and formally permitted utility project in the following zones only on lots of 3 or more acres. And it says what it is. That is a utility, that is an industrial use. It is not a commercial use, it is an industrial use. Therefore, it should only be allowed in the industrial zone, preferably the business park, industrial park, where it should not be near any residences or anything. It's a perfect place, it's right off the highway, it's right off of Fish Road, they can put if the
I'm not
electrical.
quite sure where in the industrial park they would do that, because most of the land isn't cleared.
That's correct,
They'd
But-
have to clear it.
but they'd have to clear it. But it's right next to the highway, and they can port them over to Portsmouth, where they want to do in the last phase. The other thing is, there's 4 conditions that it says, no such approval shall be given except by a written finding by the building official that the temporary storage of material and limited construction equipment will not interfere with or be detrimental to the surrounding area or neighborhood. General commercial is surrounded by neighborhoods, surrounded by residentials, like Gail said. This needs to be in an industrial zone. The other thing it does is says adequate measures related to safety, traffic, and erosion control have been demonstrated by the public utility. So that's another thing that they have to consider. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, here we go.
Hi, Jamie French, Craig Avenue. The project never really said it was for us. I mean, they asked for 6 months, we gave them 3 years. We've cut it down to 1.5 years. All they needed was 6 months. Why are we setting a precedent for that? Second, isn't the work being done on Aquidneck Island? I mean, some of it's coming through Tiverton, but it's to connect Aquidneck Island to Fall River. So it's coming through us. We're going to have the hardship of them changing out all of these lines through neighborhoods for the benefit of either Aquidneck Island or Massachusetts. And then on top of it, you're asking us to take an open lot storage and put it in the middle of a neighborhood that already has stresses. You have put no time restriction on it. You have put no dust control restrictions on it. You put no lighting restrictions on it. You put no restrictions on it. So this open lot area could be used for who knows what that doesn't benefit us and sets a precedent for the future. Obviously, this shows little regard for the neighbors. Have you ever lived near an open lot storage and you have to go beep, beep, beep all day long? It sounds like that jackhammer. And it's ridiculous that neighbors have to put up with this noise. Later tonight, you're going to want to do a public hearing to turn the North Tiverton waterfront into industry. Industry. Who
No, we're
wants
not. No, we're
industry?
not.
But
Please, don't go there.
it is on the agenda.
You're off topic.
And it may be, but it's a disregard for the neighbors. It's a disregard for you have the Shove Street industry,
Jamie, you're-
which is surrounded by neighborhoods, and it shows a disregard for neighbors. And putting a public storage area, open lot storage, on Sousa Hill shows a disregard for the neighbors, the existing neighbors. Neighbors have established rights, or they should, and you should respect that as a council. Not everyone lives south of Bergamarsh Road.
Neither do most of us.
You want to
Can I
hear from
just
the,
ask Mr.
I
Watson
found
a
the letter,
question?
if you want to hear from the.
Yeah, you want to.
So it was a July 8th meeting. I'll just read the letter. During the July 2nd, 2024 Planning Board meeting, the Planning Board made the following recommendations to the Town Council on the proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance, Article 4, Section 15, prohibited uses, with additional language under Section 15L, open lot storage. The board voted to recommend that the permitted time for the utility to store materials would be 18 consecutive months, with the opportunity to get an extension from the Town Council. In addition, the Planning Board recommended changing the zoning area where the temporary use would be permitted to only industrial zones within the PDP, which is the Planned Development District. Additionally, if permitted by the current zoning ordinance, the board further recommended that the use be permitted on industrial properties that already host a permitted and operating use, which would be illegal under our code. I'm adding
Right.
that, but we did the research and that's not permitted. You can't have more than one industrial use. The board also recommended prohibiting the storage of hazardous materials and that measures be taken to ensure protection related to noise and dust. In addition, the board recommended that the utility provide to the building official a listing of the materials and equipment to be stored at the site. Lastly, the commission recommended notification to abutters of the proposed temporary use. Thank you so that's the letter.
Thank you.
Just, can I ask Mr. Watson a question?
Yeah.
Mr. Watson, could you come on up for a second?
The public forum's still open. I will let someone else speak in a moment.
Simply because I want to make sure the facts are out here, Mr. Watson. And I believe when you came before us a few months ago, you had indicated that there will be work done in Tiverton on the electrical facilities in Tiverton, correct?
That's correct.
Can you explain where?
Certainly. So there's two right-of-ways. There's the first right-of-way, which parallels 24, and that feeds a substation off of Fish Road. That feeds the Tiverton area. The other right-of-way is one that cuts through by the water west of Main Road, and that feeds Aquidneck Island. But there's a reliability issue with those structures. They date back to the 60s. So if there's a failure of those lines, it's Tiverton that's going to be impacted because that's where they're going to have to go to replace the lines. So having a reliable system is a benefit to both Tiverton and Aquidneck Island, just as far as reducing impacts from having to do an emergency response in Tiverton for the for the lines that are on the west side of Main Road. And for the lines that are on the east side of Main Road, that feeds the Tiverton residents.
So to say that it would not benefit people in Tiverton would be false?
Correct, that would be a false statement.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone else? Craig, you want to speak? Hi.
Craig Committo, 204 Saxony Ave. Has there been any talk about this facility being built at General Auto? The rumor is that they were denied a permit or use.
I can answer that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Mr.
but-
Watson, is that the area that you gave me, the map, General Auto, yeah?
General Auto.
Is that the salvage yard?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
So that, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's in a residential district, so we can't. And now it's one of the discussions at the planning board hearing, that they wanted to exclude.
There is a lot adjacent to that, which is the current auto lot
Yeah,
spills over to the, to another lot, and
Yes.
it looks like it's all one lot, but it's not.
It's not zoned correctly.
And Mr. Watson approached the town and asked if that would be a
viable.
area where we could put it. We did a little bit more research. That, believe it or not, that underlying zone is residential.
Yeah.
So that's why it
That'd be
was.
a great spot, but I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's, we're trying to follow the zoning code as best we can, so yes.
Anyone else? Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, Mr. Cormier.
I'd like to question you, sir. You're the attorney.
Wait a minute. Who are you asking a question to?
I'd like to.
All right, address it to me, and then I'll have
I'd
you.
like to know if the Narragansett Electric is aware, is on the top of the hill where they wanna put their crap, is a place where the deer have always watched the sunset in multiple numbers. And I believe that the Casa Poconoet Land Trust has worked out agreements that they haven't announced yet, but they will soon, as soon as they can deal with the town, the state, and the federal government. Solom's Heritage Area, the Little Continent Historical Society, many groups, but I'd just like to know if the attorney realizes if they run into a Native American grave, a site that he knows the Tiverton River,
Yeah, I don't know
the
whether,
Tiverton Ordinance.
right,
As it
I know,
pertains to if they discover, if you dig up a Native American
you need
grave,
to address me, please.
does he know?
I'm sure they do know
The
that they
ordinance?
can't dig up a grave.
Well, I'd like to change that ordinance.
Okay, well, at another meeting.
I'd like to approach the administrator.
At
to
another
take
meeting.
The Narragansett Electric easements and the Algonquin Pipeline easements, and I'd like to know why it's not on Texaco Road that they're doing it. Because you already.
All
you
right,
already-
you are way off topic right
Yeah,
now.
the easements are granted by the landowners at the time, so we're not, the
Yeah.
town cannot change the easements, I can assure you that. We
No,
can't.
no, you can, but you can.
You were,
uh,
like,
you can
this is,
change the ordinance to state that it's the Pecasset Pocono Land Trust.
this is a whole nother topic for a whole nother meeting.
Yeah, that's, yeah, really.
Right.
We can address that later, but that's not on this order.
Right, that's not here.
But does,
I will ask
when
him.
when they tear
So-
up the land,
I
they
don't
take
know
down
if
all
they're
the
tearing
trees
up
at
land.
that spot, and they have a place.
They're not
right down
tearing-
the ro-
okay.
the other end of Sousa Road. I don't understand why they're not doing their land and leasing land in a residential. You keep saying this is commercial. If it goes down to commercial, are they gonna come up Main Road with their trucks?
I think Mr. Watson will.
Yeah, Mr. Watson will answer us, so you can take a seat, Mr. Cormier, and Mr. Watson will come up and answer us.
As you know, Mr. Watson has been before this council the
Several
last
times,
three
yeah.
times, so indicating what the scope of this project is. Again, I just want to remind everybody, it's a temporary project, 18 months at the max, but I think the public would benefit from knowing what it is. And the ultimate decision is the council's.
Go ahead.
What was the question again?
What's the current state of the land, and what's the plan for it?
So with respect to the land where the substation is located off of Fish Road, if we were to use that land, we'd have to clear cut a lot of land. So we were trying to avoid doing that. The Souza property has the advantage of already being cleared. It's also a former tank site, so they're not digging anywhere because they don't want
Right.
any part of that.
And you explained that last
Yeah,
time.
any part of the history of that site. So with respect to digging up in the corridor, we do work with archaeologists to identify, and if there's sensitive areas, they're marked, and they're not discussed in the public forum because they want to keep those sensitive areas private. So there's a lot of training on that, so that shouldn't be a concern. And then with respect to, do you want the scope of the project?
Yes,
What
please.
do you intend the activity to be at the site, at any site, really?
So in the right-of-ways, we're rebuilding the right-of-ways. So everything you see there will get replaced with new equipment, new structures. So the current wood structures will be replaced with metal structures, new wires, and new optical fiber ground wire. So you do this enough, you learn all the dorky stuff. And so the ground wire is a top wire that you can see. There's 3 phases for every circuit, and the ground wire is a sacrificial one on top. It also serves as a communication backbone for the electric grid. And so that's all being replaced, including the large lattice structures for the Secana River crossing. So as far as what's going to be stored
Yeah,
on the
that's-
laydown area, it's going to be the metal structures. And so those are coming in, they'll get delivered there, and then they'll be brought to each location on the right-of-way when they're needed. The alternative is there really isn't a feasible alternative, because if you bring them to the right-of-way early, then you can't prep. You're going to increase your footprint because you have to navigate around these structures. So the most efficient and less impactful way to construct these projects is to bring the structures to the location when they're needed and not have them stored there in advance of them being needed.
And how many months do you expect this to go on?
I have the siting report behind me. I haven't committed that to memory. I think right now the targeted date, I think it's supposed to start next month. And again, there's a tap line, and then there's the main line. The tap line being the one on Route 24. I think that's supposed to be done by the spring of next year. I think they're also going to start the main line at the same time, and I think that's going to take about a year to complete. And part of this is also navigating outages. You have to remember that the main line, that's the only source to Aquidneck Island. So there's a small window where you can take those lines out, because you need both lines during the winter when you have higher demand on the system. So you can take the lines out in the spring and fall. Otherwise, you're at to work around live wires, which is, as you can imagine, is not easy and not desired. You have the same challenges with Tiverton, because that tap line, if you recall it, that is the plug for the Tiverton power station.
Right.
So if you take both those lines out, you have an issue as well. So there's a challenge in doing this and sequencing it all out. They don't let the lawyers do it. Smarter people do that, but it's a big project. And the laydown area is not, I realize it's not the, construction has an impact, and we recognize that the laydown area will have an impact, but really the goal of the laydown area is to minimize the impact, because while it's not true for the tap line, that main line goes right through a lot of residential neighborhoods. So we're trying to minimize the impact by having the stuff brought there when it's needed.
Thank you. this be feasible to store it in the industrial park? I'm just not sure.
Well, we talked about that last time.
Wait, yeah, I just want,
We're still on public hearing.
yeah, I know we are, but there was nobody coming up. Now there is.
Hi, I would like to speak on this issue too. I'm Tom Peterson. I live at 1119 Main Road. I can see the corner of Sousa and Main Road from my house. I'm just outside of the historic district. It's a charming neighborhood. That's why I moved here a few years ago. As you probably all know, the neighborhood has been up in arms about the prospect of a Seasons gas station going there. If you've been to those meetings, you know that there's been sometimes 100 people at those meetings because people do not want a gas station there. I suspect the reason why more people aren't here tonight is people didn't know about this issue. I only found out about it a few days ago myself. And I think if people do not want a Seasons market there, they certainly do not want an industrial zone in the middle of their neighborhood. I don't know what the options are for where else this can go, but I don't think it belongs in what is a residential neighborhood that also already has a very, in my opinion, dangerous intersection because there's not a light on Sousa Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, come on, back up.
Sorry.
No, it's okay, don't be.
Okay. Still Gail Lawrence, still from
Push it
Long
down,
Pasture Way. Yeah, tippy toes. Anyway, so I'm just asking a clarification. I guess when I was speaking generally because I didn't know that the parcel had already been identified. So can you clarify where the proposed parcel actually is? You know where they hope to put it, is what I'm asking.
It's where the old,
So it'd be above where Seasons is?
yeah,
In between the
Is
275
or was, or
units?
maybe, not is, where
me.
it's proposed to be.
That's what I said,
Season.
it's proposed to be.
Okay, okay.
no,
All right, go ahead.
Proposed to be above Seasons, but prior to where the 275
Right.
houses would be along Sousa Road and Fish Road.
Okay.
So there's, if you remember, I don't know if you remember where the tanks were. The tanks were up on the top of the hill
That's where
on
it
an
is.
L shape.
Okay.
That's the parcel
That's where
that
it
they
is.
would be on. They would
Okay.
be above where Seasons would be, on a corner down below.
Okay, and so the entrance to the,
Would be off of Sousa Road.
not off Main Road?
no.
Okay, so
It would be partially up that hill. There's already somewhat of an entryway in there now.
I see, okay, I didn't
There's
know
I
that there
believe
was.
there's a gated entrance there.
Okay,
a
I
fence
didn't know
gated
there was a specific parcel in
There is.
mind.
Yes.
and I'm not going to redact any of my comments, however,
No, that's-
but thank you.
Welcome.
Right now, it's not allowed in any zone within the town. So that's,
Yeah, but they
Well,
have,
it's good, but unless you want power, then you.
Yeah, no, you have to be able to,
right, the problem is they need to put it somewhere.
yes,
They need to store it somewhere.
the best alternative, right, is what you see.
And I think one point of clarification too is that when we looked at that, and drafting the ordinance, we made the change to general commercial, but general commercial over, is it 3 acres or 7? What's the limit?
Three or more.
Three or more. And I believe that that's the only general commercial parcel that actually meets that description. So it's,
No, in terms of
No,
general
in-
commercial
in
areas,
terms
that
of
are
general
zoned general
commercial.
commercial areas.
That's the only area that you could do this at.
right.
Yeah,
That was a, right, that was a,
That
as
was
a
on
result of a
purpose.
public hearing, we.
that was on purpose.
So the other issue is very similar to what Rhode Island NGO National Grid had contemplated if they were to put it down behind the substation, is it would require clear cutting in the industrial park. And the permitting aspect of that, I don't know how many acres it would be, but if it's beyond it, 1 acre, it's going to require permitting through DEM that could be up to a year to get those permits.
There's a lot of wetlands in there.
That's
Yeah.
behind the park and ride, right?
Yeah,
No.
the grid substation is. So either way, there would be significant issues. So,
Which it might take a whole year to.
Yeah.
Anyone else from the public? I'm gonna close the hearing. All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing, and, Mike,
No,
I
I
know.
know John's been waiting, so I'll wait.
Jay,
I thought John was waiting anyway.
I think Jay put his hand up first. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, so when that first came up, I was pretty vocal about things I didn't like about it and thought things that needed to be changed in a proposed ordinance. I sent those concerns to Mike Marcello and to Todd. They incorporated some of those changes into the new proposed ordinance. All the general commercial, as has been stated here, the only place that's big enough for 3 acres or more would be at the corner of Sousa Road and Main Road.
Not really the corner.
Yeah, well, it's sort of behind where Susan is gonna be, and if you're familiar with Sousa Road and you drive from Main Road to Fish Road, on the left-hand side, you're gonna see
It's an open.
like a dirt road and a gate. That would be the access. Part of this ordinance says we would allow it in the industrial zone. Well, the industrial zone is a different kettle of fish because it goes from the Fall River Main, state line to North Christopher and from Fish Road to basically Stafford Pond. And there's a lot of wetlands in there. There's also a lot of homes. And it's also across the street from a lot of homes. So I personally wouldn't be in favor of that. However, if this council was to decide to incorporate this into an industrial zone, then one of my requirements would be that the planning board and the Conservation Commission have input and veto authority over a location, because we could be dealing with sensitive areas. And I don't know that I want to just trust the building official to make that decision.
Well, it wouldn't be the building well,
Yeah, it would.
well, yeah, but most of that land is protected by DEM, so,
Well, okay.
so it would be other authorities
Now-
that would.
It could go in the industrial park, and I will make one comment. If you go into the industrial park now and you look where the power plant is and you look at their poles, that's what we're talking about. Those things come in sections and they're bolted together. So they're not gonna be hauling 70, 80-foot long poles. They're gonna be hauling 20-foot sections. And they'll bring them to a site, bolt them together, and erect them. So they'll have room in the industrial park to do this. Personally, I think that's where it should go.
I thought you said you didn't want it because of the neighborhoods.
Hmm?
I thought you didn't want it in the industrial park because of the neighborhoods.
Well, the industrial park overlay zone does not go to North Christopher.
Okay,
We still got that buffer of North Tiverton Fire District,
Yep.
South Tiverton Fire
Yep.
District, and 2 private owners.
right,
So
and us.
they won't even know it's there, other than the normal noise that you might get out of the industrial park. And frankly, that's what the thing is for.
And how would you get access? You would go,
They can go up, well, the only access would be up Industrial Way.
right. And then they'd have to clear in there. Yeah.
Maybe a little.
Oh, a lot if they're gonna put poles, none of that is cleared. I mean, they gotta work in there.
Well, it depends what site they choose. And, part of this should be that they would be required to do the minimum amount necessary for the laydown area. So we're not talking about clear cutting 5 acres.
Right.
They might only
Well, that-
need 2 or 3. Okay.
Well, that's what we would need to know.
Well.
And we
that's
need to
why-
know if it infringes on wetlands.
Yeah.
John, I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand, I hear all the comments. I think this issue is getting slightly overblown. Really what we're talking about here is them trucking in, as Councilor Edwards mentioned, segments of, metal poles to replace the old kerosene dipped wooden poles that are probably not really great for the environment, and to modernize the grid. And it's not like this ordinance is gonna create a, an opportunity for a private, industry to come in and, do whatever they want in the one general commercial parcel that would actually accommodate this. It's a public utility, the fact of the matter is, we need electricity in this town. We have a power plant, yes, but we have to have a way to get it to all the homes And the same goes for Aquidneck Island. Unfortunately, those lines do pass through the town of Tiverton. So, my fear is that, we drag this out, that Rhode Island Energy is not able to do this project in an expeditious fashion. And the next thing you know, because we are kind of due, the last hurricane we had was Hurricane Bob, that was any sizable, any kind of size. What if we have the next hurricane of 38 that rolls up the bay, and all of a sudden now it's not just Aquidneck Island that's out of power, it's all of Tiverton too, because we chose to leave, poles in the ground that were put there 60 years ago and desperately need to be replaced. So, my vote, I'll say this right now, my vote is to move forward and approve this ordinance because it's got to be done, and the only entity that is ever going to need to do this is Rhode Island Energy or whoever PPL subsequently sells them to in another 65 years from now, maybe longer, as was stated by Mr. Watson at one of the prior public hearings, that this upgrade is going to be good for another 50, 60, 80, 100 years. I probably won't be around by the time they need to do this again. So 18 months, let's get it done. Let's move on with our lives and ensure that when you flip the light switch, the lights come on.
Thank you. Councilor Burke?
I agree that you need a space and that it will benefit Tiverton as much as others. I do have concerns about the highway commercial and the general commercial. I think it should be limited to the industrial park. And I would also suggest that we put a sunset clause on this, which I guess would be about three years out. Would that kind of sunset work for your plan? Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Watson, yes. I'm sorry?
Come up here, we can't hear you.
I'm sure if I can speak.
Yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
asking you a question.
Yeah.
A sunset on the ordinance?
Yeah,
Like the ordinance will go away after,
Right.
I'll do it after 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah, because we're not, once the project's done, we're not,
Yeah, that's what I wanted
We're
to
not
make sure I
coming
had a
back,
time
and-
frame
Right, and then
that
that-
worked for you.
Right.
and those lines were originally put in, and I think around, actually they predate 62.
60 years ago.
Yeah, the lines predate 62. The tap line was built in the late 80s, early 90s. So, yeah,
Okay.
because maybe my son will come and argue this, 60 years from now, but,
You want him to be an attorney, or is he already?
I just want him out of the house, but.
So, Madam President, I have two, I have two proposed amendments, and I'd like to do the sunset first.
Okay.
Proposal, move that we amend the proposed ordinance to include a sunset clause to end 4 years after the project starts.
I like that idea. Okay.
Will that work?
Pick a date, no
Pick a
later
date.
than,
No later
Pick a
than,
date.
pick a date.
okay, let's say January.
Because I don't want to get into a big
Yeah,
argument of when
okay.
the project started.
Let's say January 1 of 2029?
2020, yeah.
Will that be feasible? Okay. Let's say 23rd, just to play it safe. We'll give you 5 years.
That's 4 years, that's 4 years.
No, 4 years. Do
4 years? Okay, 2029, so January 1, 2029?
The ordinance, this means the ordinance subset, doesn't mean the project is gonna go on, the ordinance would.
Right,
would-
the ordinance
and the
goes
ord-
away.
Right, goes away,
The ordinance,
yeah. And again, as it's written, this is limited to licensed public utilities.
Right.
It's not, I cannot go in and put
There
a
would
lid
be
on
no
it.
one else that would do this.
It could be a gas company.
could be gas, could be sewer.
Yeah, but as far as, there wouldn't be a private person doing it.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It could be gas, telephone. But they all share the same poles.
That's a motion. I don't know if you got a second.
Oh, is that a motion you're
Yep.
making? Do I have a second for discussion? Because I have a question.
I'll second that.
Are we discussing just
Just the order, just the
Just-
amendment.
just the amendment?
So the sunset, suppose the gas company comes in between this time and wants to use another parcel of land to store something. And their project's gonna take longer than 2029. Then we'd have to re-look at this.
The council at the time could change the sunset.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure. All right, so John?
So I understand what Councilor Burke's asking for. realistically speaking, the only entity that is going to need to use a laydown area like this is Rhode Island Energy. The only one. Because the gas company is gonna bring in the pipes and segments, they're gonna cut up the road, they're gonna put them in, they're gonna be gone.
Yeah.
They're gonna be on the side of the road. You're talking about small pipes, right? Cox Communications doesn't maintain these things. Verizon doesn't maintain these things. The sewer department, they go into they rip the road up, they bury the sewer lines, they pave the road back over again. So we're literally talking about something that is specific to Rhode Island Energy or whoever PPL sells Rhode Island Energy to in the future. So, I don't know. I feel like we're way overthinking this.
I understand. At the same time, I don't think it matters then if we have a sunset. You know, it's not gonna hurt anything to have a sunset to it. If this is going to be the only project potentially, it's not gonna hurt anything to have a sunset to the ordinance.
We don't want to get to the end and something comes up that we did not think about. So at least we do have this end.
David, did you want to?
It's just a catch-22 on the sunset, because we have 18 months in here, not to exceed 18 with an additional 18 per the council, which, from what I understand, is no different than a sunset, but then if something comes up, we change our minds, or, so why not just leave it at the 18 months and then revisit it in 18 months? It actually gives them a tighter timeline to clean up and get out.
But they still have a tight timeline.
Apply to a specific applicant.
Yeah.
So you could have a train of applicants with 18 months extensions.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor and a second for the sunset to be January 1st, 2029. Any further
For the
discussion?
ordinance to just expire.
So the ordinance as written,
Will expire.
which go back to the old ordinance that does not allow this in any zone.
Okay. All those in favor? Against? Okay. All right, and then you,
So,
what's the
he
matter?
didn't get the letters. He didn't get the letters.
I gotta get 6 to 1.
So I have another amendment.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
So I move that we amend the proposed ordinance to strike highway commercial and strike industrial and strike general commercial, so that it would be limited to the planned development park.
Well, industrial is the plan
Is the
development park, so
plan,
you gotta
yeah.
do that. It's either-
So I
industrial
read
is the plan
that,
development park, yeah.
but I want to make sure it's just that area,
Well, that's the only.
not, because there's other industrial.
So it's an industrial area which also has a PDP overlay, but a PDP overlay can be in any industrial zone that's more than 10 acres.
So then,
Valleys, in theory, could go and ask for a PDP overlay.
right, as long as it's zoned industrial.
They are.
Yeah. So what you want to specifically put industrial park?
mhm, to the current planned and development park.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, Deb.
So I have gotten phone calls from people who also, the planning board did not include the general commercial. And so these people wanted to go back to what the planning board had recommended, which would be the business park. And I did have several people who did talk to me about that, for a lot of the same reasons that Gail Lawrence talked about, was the appearance of it, the closeness to residential areas, safety, those kind of factors. So going back to the letter from Mrs. Cormier, she's talking about utility poles and being wooden utility poles. Are we not using wooden, so that all of these chemicals that they're concerned about would not be a factor?
Did you see this? You might want to look at what is being
The
suggested.
wooden poles are coming down and steel structures are going up. If you've gone down 185 in Swansea, that's what they're doing this way.
Yeah, so the wooden
Okay,
poles.
I just wanted to make sure that we address this, because this was a concern, the preservatives to help them last longer and keep bugs out.
Right, those poles are the ones that are failing. They're past their useful life, so those are being replaced. Those poles, when they're removed from the site or removed from the right-of-way, they're not being stored on the laydown area.
Okay.
The laydown area is just for,
Just the steel
The
ones.
new,
just for new
things coming
poles,
in.
new wires. It will be security present. With the one zoning change that's being recommended to limit it to industrial, we also have to go and get permission from the people who own the industrial land to do this.
It's us.
We own it, so.
We own it.
Because we did go to the other developers, or sorry, the other, like the quarries that are
Yeah.
above
No,
the
we
This
Fisher
own-
is
property.
specific
This
to the
is-
planned development park, which is by the police station, kind of behind the police station.
Behind the police station.
Okay, and
And we own it. The town owns it.
let's now have to negotiate a lease with you guys. Okay, I mean, if that's,
Well, if it passes, yeah,
Well, we
you'll,
may bill you, but.
you would have to negotiate a lease with us, yes.
okay, because I don't think that was considered. We did consider the two, I guess, rock quarries or whatever that are
Yeah,
north of the Fish Road substation, and they both, they didn't want any attention brought to their property, so they said no. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? David, did you want to?
I was just gonna ask Mr. Watson, if this were to go to the industrial
Mr.
park,
Watson, you might as well just stand there for a few minutes.
if this were to go to the industrial park and there has to be land cleared, how does that affect the lead time on the project?
So the big issue is gonna be whether or not there's wetlands. That's the one challenge with the Fish Road substation parcel, is that there's a lot of wetlands there. And so navigating around the buffer to do a cut was pretty difficult. So I'm not familiar with the industrial park. If it's dry, which which I'm hearing it's not, there could be some challenges there.
Oh, that's just the industrial park.
Depends on which parcels we're talking about. Some are dry, some are wet.
Yeah, it all depends. I mean, there's parcels that are partly dry and partly wet. There are dry
There's significant
parcels,
wetlands on the industrial park.
but there are,
There's also limited road frontage.
And we have, executive session, we have
A couple
a couple parcels that people want to buy,
right.
so.
And we need about 3 to 4 acres cleared.
None of it's clear.
None of it is cleared at all.
Well, I mean, if we use it, it will be.
So,
No, it would have to
right,
be, yeah.
right. I just want to warn you, it's not cleared at all.
Right.
Um,
So I mean, so the timing for that will be a setback. I'm not saying it's impossible, but
Is that all wet?
Well, this is the PDP right here.
Yeah,
It's not all wet.
not all wet, but there's a lot.
Right over here.
Madam President,
John?
just on the amendment, I will reiterate again, this is a singular entity that is a public utility. It's not like anybody else can go in and do it. They already have an ideal lot identified that is proximate to where they need to get this stuff done, and they need to replace the failing infrastructure. Any changes beyond getting them to do the laydown area, where they drop off the materials, and then they pick them up and bring them around the corner and install them, any delay is gonna cause a delay in them getting this project up and running. It's gonna add additional costs, and I, for one, am tired of paying an exorbitant amount of money on my electric bill because government keeps pushing more and more down on the public utility. Let's let them get this project up and running and get it done so that we can move on and know that when we turn the lights on, they're actually gonna come on.
Mike?
Two things. One, I have no idea if this project would reduce electric costs. But two, I think the folks who have spoken and the neighbors have legitimate concerns about the property that's located near Sousa Road. And that's why I'm suggesting that it be limited.
And I agree with you about the neighbors' concerns. What would be like the least amount of infrastructure that would have to be built in the industrial park to get to?
It would just be cutting down trees.
It's, but,
Well,
but do
it
we have to
depends
get,
on
we have to
where.
get a road into there?
Well, no,
Depends on which parcels they want
yeah,
to
it
put.
depends on what
There are some
parcel.
parcels under consideration now that are along the existing road.
Roads.
That
Of
would,
course.
if those are, and I'm not, trying to show anybody's hand here or anything, it is what it is. And I don't think they're willing to wait 18 months, for us to.
4 years.
Or 3 years. So, there are gonna be a limited amount of parcels along that existing road. So there may be a need to put a roadway in beyond
Yeah,
the end of Progress Road.
yeah.
which is more infrastructure that would have to be done to. that is
And who
what it is.
would pay for that infrastructure?
Well, that's
We all would,
something
on
we'd
our
have to
electric bill.
renegotiate.
Madam President, just to reiterate and impressed with what Councilman Edwards is saying, it's a critical infrastructure need. This particular lot, while I have a ton of respect for the neighbors and the opinion, one of my concerns you addressed, the telephone poles are not going there, they're just being taken off-site, so those are disappearing. This is strictly for the metal poles. It's literally being put on an area that's dig 10 feet, and we probably have a nightmare on our hands anyway, from what's already in the
Not
ground over
even
there.
10 feet.
And this is a matter of putting steel poles in place. How many poles are you guys moving a day? One,
Oh, they
two?
only move like 3 or 4 poles a day at tops, I think. Because keep in mind, the process is you got to dig a hole.
Right.
And
So-
Tiverton, so we're talking.
Glacier rock.
Right.
So you're gonna just, about how many poles will be stored there?
I don't know. I mean,
So,
Could be up to 100.
I mean, the project is
All right.
hundreds of poles when you factor in.
All right.
It's 9 miles of right-of-way.
yeah, I really, so one truck is gonna come in and take one pole?
Yeah, they will bring the pole out. I mean, I think as Mr. Edwards said earlier, it's done in sections. I think it's more like 40 feet, not 20 feet. But it's.
The length of a trailer trunk.
Right, so they're brought out in sections, and then most of them are now direct in bed. It's only the corners where they have to put a concrete foundation because of the tensions on the wire.
So these are carried away in tractor trailers? Sorry.
Yes, and so, I emailed the team, I think bigger low beds will bring them in,
Right.
but a smaller truck will bring it to the right-of-way, because you're navigating
Right.
a small right-of-way, you're going up and down hills, you can't bring a low bed out there, it'll just get.
And each one of those can hold all three that you're speaking of, or?
No, I think they
or
may
there's
go
three
one by
separate
one,
trucks that have
yeah.
it?
They're gonna go one by one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking.
Really heavy.
What?
They're pretty heavy.
Yeah, yeah, there's nothing lightweight about this. And I do recognize the impact on, the traffic impacts, but the fact is, we have to get to the right-of-way. So
Right.
we're gonna have the traffic impacts either way,
Right.
because we have to get the poles to that
No
side.
matter if you still
You're
are
gonna
there
go
or
down
anywhere
Su-
else.
yeah.
Some of these laneways, some of these right-of-ways go right between houses.
Right. We won't, the traffic impacts will be minimal for the tap line portion, because again, that's just off 24. You're in an isolated area. We're not going towards the residential the more densely populated residentials. But when we do the main line, we're going through people's backyards.
Right.
And there is a lot of coordination, and they're not there in one spot for the entire piece. It's like they phase, they move down the right-of-way, they first mowing.
Like a road project.
Right.
Yeah. It's done in phases.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other discussion? So if we did it at the industrial park, this may delay the project.
Oh, we'd have to come to a term as to what parcels and what infrastructure would need to be put in to access those parcels.
And knowing what we have to go through sometimes with DEM and
Yeah, we'd have
it could take a
RIPI's
year.
permitting to do, it's the wetlands, even when we're doing the recycling center, there's not, apparent wetlands there, but you still have to go through the wetlands people to get the permitting to do the excavation or the clearing, grubbing, and all the rest of it that you need to do to open up the lot.
So it could take a year before we're permitted to do it.
Yep.
And when are you planning on starting this project?
Next month.
October,
I
right?
knew that, I just wanted to.
was 4 or 5 months now.
I know.
I mean, how long have we been waiting for DEM?
So it's been about 10 months now for the
For
newest
the
one.
for the
Yeah.
recycle.
So we are permitted now to do that, so,
But yeah, that's close to a year.
for the recycling center.
Are you gonna use jackhammers?
No, they're not
Jack-
using jackhammers.
No jackhammers?
All right, so I,
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, they will.
yes.
yeah, but not where you're storing.
No.
The work site.
Yeah,
At the work site.
The laydown area is
Oh,
trucks
God,
and
Deb,
cranes.
why did you bring that up?
And maybe,
I'm trying to,
Yeah, I know.
trying to think of all the issues,
But
potential issues.
we don't blast, I can tell you that. We don't blast in the right of way.
Okay.
So would there also be storage of reels of wire? I just want to make sure that whatever we say is going to be in the laydown area, that's what's going to be there.
Yeah, I think you may have some of this, it's aluminum reinforced.
It is what it is,
Still
but-
reinforced aluminum
but-
wire.
So that
yeah.
might be up there too.
Right.
I just don't want anybody to say, well, they said it was only going to be this or that. It's,
Yeah, and we're happy to provide that list. There
Okay.
will not be any
Yeah,
hazardous
nothing
material.
hazardous,
Everything's gonna be inert.
nothing-
It's just, I think it's gonna be the structures, the wires, and the insulators, which are the spacers between the structure and the wire.
All right, so I have a motion on the floor and second. If there's no further discussion,
Can we just get the motion?
Sure.
So the motion is to limit it to the planned and development part, the current planned development part. Striking all other provisions related to zoning.
all right, motion's on the floor in a second. All those in favor? Opposed? 2-5.
Madam Chair,
So, yes, John.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the amendment to the Code of Ordinances, Appendix A zoning articles, what is that, 4, District Use Regulations, Section 15, prohibited uses. As amended.
Second.
Yeah, with the sunset provision
Well,
amendment,
that's the
yes.
amendment. Okay. Motion been made and second. Any further discussion? Jay?
Well, I gotta tell you, I'm torn on this whole thing, but when you start talking about DEM approvals and delaying the project, and, you know, I get how necessary it is and beneficial. I'm torn, but I really think I need to vote to let it go.
Okay. Anyone else?
No, I second what Jay's saying.
I think we're all a little bit uncomfortable with
Yeah.
it, but,
I don't see a good alternative.
no, but it has to be done.
There are safeguards in this ordinance. The building
Yeah.
official has a lot of discretion
Right.
to,
Oh,
know,
there's a ton of
there's
safeguards.
safeguards. The building official has discretion to ask for changes if he needs to. Mr. Watson's been before us before. We had the liaison here before. They're a public utility. They are regulated by not only the Energy Facilities Siting Board, but by the Public Utilities Commissions. If there's issues, we always have a right to go to them. But I'm sensing, and I know it's not, I don't live in the neighborhood, and I understand that people would have concerns, but, the town is not without any remedies if they do start, it gets crazy or out there. And I don't think that's their intention. I think their intention is to get in and out of there as quickly as possible, but that's, so. And again, this is the fourth public hearing we've had on this ordinance with a lot of input from people, and we have made changes, so. And they've been great working to us, and we pushed back on some of the stuff that they wanted, and we didn't agree to that, so I'm just letting you know that they've already showed ability to cooperate with the town.
All right, so I have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor? Against? 6-1.
Would you like this back, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Unless you want it, I mean, I have
You can
I have
have
an
it if you
electronic
like.
copy. It's
Oh,
up to you.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not getting far here. 6B, public hearing advertise, approval of proposed amendment to the Tiverton Code of Ordinance zoning ordinance, Article 4, district use regulation, Article 24, solar energy systems. This amendment to Article 4 adds solar energy systems as used in the district use regulations. The amendments of the article, roof setback standard, revises the approved process to comport with changes in state law and remove the special use permit requirement, since the required condition for every project comprehensively cover the specific and objection criteria that otherwise would be required. I'd like to open the public hearing. Anybody would like to speak on this? One more time, anyone? I'll close the public hearing. Councilors? Anyone like to comment or concerns?
Well, as many know, I was the chairman of the committee that drafted the original solar ordinance, and we did encounter some problems. That became apparent afterwards. I've gone through the whole thing, and I'd say I'm pretty good with it.
Anyone else?
I just have a,
Go ahead, Mike.
thanks. So we did have to change this because under the original proposal, it was going through both land development review and
Yep.
and another process. The law does not allow that anymore, so that's a big part of these changes. I did speak to Todd this morning. If you look at section 4, section 6, section 4, subsection 6.
Pitch roofs?
Pitch roofs. This is the, so our current ordinance, I believe, our setbacks on all
18 inches.
are 18 inches. And the deputy fire marshal indicated to us that the national NAFP does not have any setback requirements, I believe, for residences. And we wanted to make it conform with the NFAP, which I think this does, except for one provision, and I just don't think this is just good language. It says on the roof edges, so slope edges and valleys, and shall be set back at least 12 inches from the lower edge gutter line. So that's from the lower edge gutter, 18 inches. We're requiring that. Then it says, or as the NFPA may require at the time of the application. Well, the NFP at the time of application doesn't require any setback from the gutter line.
Right.
So that's a little, we need to clarify that. So we're saying we want 18 inches. You want 18 inches from the gutter line, right? That's.
Right, so we
Right.
need to omit that or.
Well, he meant it that if there were changes
I know, but that's
in
not
the
what it
guidelines,
says.
but that's what he meant.
Well, what happened here was, when we worked on this and drafted the ordinance that we're correcting, there was and they're still there, a provisional or ready-to-be-adopted version of the NFPA, and that had a vastly expanded section on solar, and it included these setbacks that we incorporated, fully expecting that the state of Rhode Island would adopt them, and they have not. They may yet do that. So I guess what we're saying is, whatever the current NFPA says is what we should do,
Okay.
but we would like the 18 inches.
So, just so
We
you,
can't mandate it.
but just so you know, as it's written, it says 18 inches or as required by the NFPA, and right now the
So it
NFPA does not
doesn't have
require
to-
0.
So it doesn't have to go.
So,
with
so,
18 inches.
Mr. Solicitor, could we just amend it to add whichever is greater?
Right,
Greater or more restrictive?
more restrictive.
Right, because
Okay.
his concern was that we would have to keep changing the ordinance as the changes to the NFPA
So-
standards.
No, and I get his intent, it's just,
Yeah.
Right.
when I read this today, it was a switch of the language, so, just so you understand what, I think everyone understands what's going on. We were
Yes.
trying to avoid them coming back before the zoning board for all these variances and whatnot, that, it's costly and it's really not, doesn't really make a lot of sense, but as it's written now, I think with your language is with the lesser of.
Would
Or
it be whichever is greater or more restrictive?
No, it would be more, so if you want, the restrictiveness is if the NFPA come up with a 36-inch.
Yeah,
So
whichever,
you want restrict-
or the, whichever is the I'll come up with language, but whatever is the restrictive of the two, that's what we need.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll add that language, I just wanna talk to Todd before we do it, but as long as you give me the permission to adopt language that says
Yes,
the less restrictive of the two, the more restrictive of the
the
two.
more restricted.
And then it, used to be, for special use permits for some of these, for some of these solar systems that are on the ground, but these are no longer special use permits, they're permitted as a matter of right. So it removes another hurdle that was in the law. Because the new law requires specific criteria for every special use permit, so they made it as a matter of right. It was always a matter of right on rooftops anyway.
Madam Chair?
Yes, John.
I have a question. If we're looking at section 5, the ground-mounted solar, or SES use by zone, Mr. Solicitor, what would be defined as an impaired site?
Section what?
Section 5,
3.
it's,
Like a quarry or a
It would be
landfill.
3 you're talking about.
yeah,
right?
3.
Oh, there's a provision here, at the town council, it's NEM restricted, I think there's a definition here of impaired site, hold on.
Just a lot of words, you know?
Yeah, it's on,
So it's an impaired site is a system located on a disturbed parcel that may include contaminated sites pending remediation, a remediated and restricted contamination site, recognized and designated brownfields, federal superfund designated site, and formerly legally owned, operated landfills, quarries, and gravel pits.
Is that clear, John?
Yeah.
All right.
That's that was one of my questions.
Anyone
That's
else?
that's existing language, that's not changing.
Okay.
Any other? I'd entertain a motion.
motion to approve the draft ordinance with the directive to have the solicitor insert language. Do you need the specific site?
Section 4.
Section 4, subsection A6, to have it the more restrictive of the 18 inches or the NFPA. That makes sense?
Yeah, and I'll make the changes, it'll be
Okay.
codified, but I will bring it back to you just to be safe. I just wanted to, so you see it, but it should pass tonight, but I
Yes.
wanna bring it back to you, so.
Okay, motion's been made and second?
Second. Quick
All the-
discussion?
Yes.
Um,
Why does it have to come back to us?
This is very quick. So, just so I'm clear, ground-mounted SES not allowed in any residential zone? Unless meeting like, industrial,
John?
commercial,
Back on section
section 5.
Back on 5.
Meaning I can't,
No,
I can't mount my solar panels on the ground to get a better angle of the sun.
They're prohibited in open space, the Stafford Pond watershed protected overlay district, in the primary protection area of the non-Quick Pond watershed. So section 5A tells you where they can go. But they can go in a residential zone if they meet other
Yeah.
requirements.
We talked about that.
And that was always the case.
Thank you.
So I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Let's try to get through some of this. Appointments and resignations, Harbor Commission. It's a 9-member board, 2-year term, 2 vacancies. Michael David Gates of 83 Leonard Drive requests appointment. Is Michael here? Come on up, Michael. Thank you for waiting so long.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Just state a little bit about yourself and why'd you like to be on the Harbor Commission?
Okay, so I'm a retired systems engineer. I retired from Raytheon, and I've got some background in oceanography and ocean engineering that I did in graduate school. I believe that I can support a lot of technical issues concerning the harbor, and I'm very interested in the water. I'm a sailor, and so forth, and that's it, really.
And you have time for meetings, you're available for meetings?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any questions?
Yes, Jay.
So,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
not a question, it's just a statement. So, Mr. Gates applied previously in the year for this position, and for whatever reason at the time, he bailed out. And when this came up again, I immediately called him and said, please put your application in, and he did.
I remember that.
And I
And we're
think
very happy.
new blood is good on our boards and commissions, and I would be glad to have him.
And the Harbor Commission has done so much work in the last couple of years, and I think that your skill set will be really welcome with this group. They rewrote the harbor plan over the last couple of years, and there's a lot of technicalities that were involved in that. I know that when I first started, I thought the Harbor Commission was more about moorings and boats, but it's just so much more, and it's a great group of people who work on that commission.
Very good.
I think you would have
very
a
much.
great
Yeah.
time with them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd entertain a motion.
Madam Chair.
There's 2 positions and 2 appointments.
Make a motion that we waive our policy on appointments and appoint this evening.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and second, all in favor? Another motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Michael Gates, 83 Leonard Drive, to the Harbor Commission for a term ending 7/15/2026.
Motion been made and second, all those in favor? Paul Duarte, it's Duarte.
Oh, is it?
It could be Duarte, but it's
Oh.
Duarte in Fall River.
I know. Yeah.
17
He's up here. Don't worry, he's not here.
17 South Avenue, request reappointment. Paul was here last time, and unfortunately, we couldn't have the meeting. This is a reappointment.
Madam Chair.
And he does a wonderful job on the Harbor Commission. Yeah.
So I'd like to entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we reappoint Paul Duarte, or Duarte, 17 South Ave, to the Harbor Commission for a term ending 7/15/2026.
Second.
Motion been made in second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Tiverton Dog Park Advisory Committee, discussion and possible vote regarding the Raymond F. Jones Memorial Dog Park event LalaPawrooza on October 5th, 2024, from 11 a.m. to 2. Is there anyone here from the dog park? Did they know they had to come? They probably, I can speak a little bit about this. They had it last year. David can also speak on it. It went very well. It's only for a short period of time. Yeah, David, do you want to?
Yeah, it's low impact. I was actually there the other day when they were hauling wood chips in, and they were talking about the area that they plan on having it, so it wouldn't encroach on the Moon Tree or the library or anything like that. Plenty of parking, as always. You were there last year, I believe. But it's a very low impact event. It's more or less for, it's for non-park patrons as well, but a lot of the park patrons attend it.
And the
So-
dogs.
And the dogs.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the LalaPawrooza event at the Raymond F. Jones Memorial Dog Park on October 5 from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
And I'll
Do I have a
second that.
second? Motion been made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Senior Center Director Holmes, discussion and possible vote on adoption of Senior Center Code of Conduct. Hi, Janet.
Pretty straight.
All right, go ahead, Janet. Did you break something?
I
Oh,
just
all right.
lost the cap to the pen. You know, I've been here nearly, well, this is my 8th year. I just think that it's important to have these words in writing. A lot of it to me is common sense, but we've had a few issues, and it'd be nice to have something to refer to. I did request through the other directors in the state of Rhode Island, and 3 of them sent me their policies. So this is which I put together from some of theirs. Mine is more simplified, but it hits the areas of concern. Again, I just wanted you to look at it and hopefully approve it, just so I have the backing from you. But to me, most of it is common sense. We want, you know, we are an independent facility. We are open to pretty much anybody who wants to come, but there are some that don't have their daily activities, your ADLs, your, you know what I'm talking about. So sometimes they don't have the ability to do certain things, and so they bring an aide with them, which is perfectly fine. But we've had some issues of a few incidents of people that are coming in or are being dropped off by family members and being treated like a daycare, which we want to discourage.
And they need special care, which you are not able
And we
to
are
provide.
not, we aren't CNAs, we don't do bathroom duty. Some, you know, it's sad because I know they're desperate and they just don't want to leave mom or dad home alone, but we're not that kind of facility where we can give them the attention that they need.
And there are daycare options.
There are, but you know, those are paid, and, you know, the senior center's a public place where they can drop them off for free, so they take advantage of it. So I'm just trying to address that as delicately as possible with family members, but sometimes, you know, but it's good to have something to refer to. So that's why we put this in writing, and that's why I brought it to your attention as well. I just think it was time that we had something that we could refer to.
Mike, did you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Janet. I think this is great. Just a couple
Sure.
thoughts and questions.
Yes, please.
And I'm fine with moving forward and maybe coming back at a later date.
Sure.
Just in terms of the third bullet on the second page, and it's also in the paragraph at the top, inappropriate or disruptive behavior, you give one example, but maybe defining what that means a little bit more, because what's inappropriate or disruptive to you might be different to somebody else.
True. We tolerate a lot.
Yeah.
But, you know, if somebody is using foul language or...
Your example is exposing oneself.
Right.
Yes,
Right, that's
well,
pretty
you know, the bathroom is right across from my office, and
Oh,
so
okay.
we, you know, sometimes they do it probably unintentionally, but that's just an example, but it's more of, and we haven't had many issues there where we try to kind of keep things, it's more or less, you know, we have one individual that has, you know, just gone nuts with, and I don't know if it's
Other problems.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not
and
thinking you should define it now, but just think about it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just-
yep.
The other thing is I would suggest some type of appeals process.
Okay, there was some of that in the other, from the other senior centers, and it is something that I did think about, but I didn't want to put it so much in, I figured it would be in an individual, you know, I didn't want to make it so it's so restrictive that we're not going to have the conversation with somebody.
So
Yeah.
oftentimes, appeals processes will start at the lowest level.
Yes.
And you have to exhaust those lowest levels, so a lower level might be, if you can't deal with it, it goes to Chris.
Yeah.
And then have some type of, so I
Yeah.
chair the grievance committee for the shelters.
Okay.
In the continuum of care for the state, and we have a small group of folks, and generally speaking, the expectation is it gets dealt with at the shelter level.
Okay.
And if it can't be dealt with there, or the person just refuses, then it comes to this grievance committee. So
That-
I'm happy to help
Yeah,
you with
could
that.
you send that to me,
Yeah.
just as an example? Because that's kind of what, we haven't had to go to that extreme yet, but it's kind of nice to kind of
Yep.
follow some kind of formality. So far, we've been able to handle most things, but again, like I said, it's good to have something to refer to. I've even went on to put on the back of one of the newsletters, like the difference between what an assisted living is and adult daycare and a senior center versus a nursing, you know,
And that might
what
be a good
the level
idea.
of care, you know, just for education
That
purposes.
might be a good idea.
Oh, I did that already.
Oh, you did, because
in
people
the
may
past.
not understand the point of this.
Exactly,
think you need
exactly,
to
but
spell it
it's
out a little more.
sometimes, but some of them, even if you spell it out, you have to.
Yeah, I know.
But,
All right,
Make a motion?
yep, go ahead.
Can I-
Move
Can I
oh.
say something also? I
Oh, sure.
think that, I'm very happy that you are starting this and having some language. Working with the elderly, I totally understand families are strapped and there's not enough people out there to help, there's not enough money to help, and so they do look for the least restrictive environment they can send. But we don't want people to be in the inappropriate setting where they're not safe or our other members are not safe. And we
True.
certainly would not want other members to feel unsafe or to feel that they didn't want to attend all of the different services that you provide because there's someone who really should not be there. So I think this is a great start. And the only comment I would have is under, they may bring a caregiver, adult, or personal care
Yes.
attendant, and maybe some language about discussion for any kind of adaptions could be entertained because maybe they have some other programs or adaptive equipment to help with their ADLs that they could bring in and do on their own.
Yeah.
But, you know, it just opens up that conversation and kind of educates both sides.
We do have a number of people that do come in with an aid, which
Do they?
we welcome that. I mean, we have some from the group home that come for lunch and they bring their aids, and I've got others that come to some of the classes, and welcomed all of that. It's when they like I had one woman who, she can't get up the ramp, but she has somebody push her up on her rollator, and I'm just, you know, you just see an accident waiting to happen. The person that's pushing her up there, if she falls over, they're all
Right.
on the ground. Yeah.
And the liability
Yeah,
comes back to
that's,
you and
that's the
us
kind of
and-
stuff that
right.
really makes me really nervous. And again, the appropriateness of that particular individual we have to question too, you know? If you can't get up that ramp on your own, how are you gonna get to the bathroom on your own, or get to, and these are issues that have, you know, so, anywho.
All right, any other discussion? I'd like to entertain a motion.
Motion to move that we approve the Senior Center Code of Conduct.
Second.
Anything else? No. Motion been made and second. All those in favor? Thank you, Janet.
Thank you all.
Councilor Edwards, discussion on waste oil heating furnaces for DPW garage. Jay?
Okay, so as Deb probably remembers, when I was on the Budget Committee a couple of years, I brought this up, and I brought it up a couple of times. This is the second time at the council level. What it amounts to is we get a lot of waste oil at DPW, and right now, we pay to get it taken away. We could be burning this instead of number 2 heating oil and using it to heat the DPW garage, but we don't. We could save a ton of money by doing it now. There would be an expense to buy these special furnaces. When I first wanted to do this, they were about $6,000 a piece. They're probably 10 to 12 now, but they might very well pay for themselves in 3 or maybe 4 years. We wouldn't have to pay to get rid of the waste oil, which is $1 a gallon right now. We wouldn't be buying a certain amount of number 2 heating oil. We would still have to buy some, but not as much. We would still have some waste oil to get rid of, but not as much. So to me, this is pretty much a no-brainer. If anybody wants to inquire further, VD Brothers car dealership has, I believe, 3 of them. Of course, they have a lot of waste oil.
Yeah, you're writing that we would probably,
Yeah, so,
could use 2.
well, I don't know how we would do it. There may be grants. We might start with 1 and work ourselves up to 2. I don't think we would generate enough waste oil to go, go beyond 2.
Yeah.
One of the things that we'd have to be careful of is when citizens bring waste oil, that's all they bring. So it's not paint thinner with dried paint in it or any of that kind of stuff, because the waste oil furnace doesn't like that stuff. However, I think it would be beneficial for us to look into this and do it. And I think the town administrator agreed with me the last time I brought this up, but it was around COVID, and we have a hell of a lot going on. How would we pay for them? We could use some casino money, maybe.
Yeah.
We might find grants. I don't know, I'm not a grant person, but we got one in the room, and I bet you he would help us.
He
Right,
just
Chief?
walked in the room.
He's been here, he's been dealing with an issue.
So, I mean,
Now you're gonna do grants for, yeah.
I just request that we give it some thought and look into it and maybe do it.
So I'll definitely look into it. We'll come up with a plan of action because we will have to segregate the public supplies that come in.
Be careful.
There will have to be a way to test them, to make sure that we are not getting product into our own systems. But it is a very good idea, and it's been something that Rick and I have discussed a couple of times, and I think he's receptive to it as well.
One other consideration, so when we run out of waste oil, these things can automatically shift to number 2 heating oil and burn it.
Oh.
And VD's tells me the maintenance on them is like $300 a year.
All right, so
That's my
Chris,
spiel.
you'll look into it?
I'll
and
look
we'll-
into it. I'll put a project together for it.
All right, and we'll put it on the agenda either at the end
Okay.
of September, beginning of October. Okay. Councilor Vice President Burk, discussion possible vote to advertise and schedule public hearing on planning board short-term rental ordinance recommendations or to go forward changes back, or to forward changes back to planning board. And we put that in there just in case we made big changes that the planning board needed to look at.
Thank you, Madam President. So this is only on the agenda to either move it back or to put it on for public hearing at a later date. It's not a public hearing tonight. We've been waiting for a while for the legislature to give cities and towns a little bit more flexibility in how to address this issue, and it's not been forthcoming. There is still a commission on this, but I'm not even sure if they've met lately. And, you know, the next session doesn't start until January. So what this does is we tried to take as much of the feedback that we've gotten and put something out there that we think makes the most sense for the town. I worked with the planning board ahead of time on this because we would be sending it to them for their feedback anyway. So they have provided feedback. The one piece that they, and I'll just walk quickly through this, but they are concerned about the definition of owner-occupied and more clearly defining what that means in terms of time in it and the like. But basically what this does is it limits any short-term rentals to only owner-occupied units. The intent being where the owner is living in that same building. The other piece is to address is the prohibition, potential prohibition on hosting events at STRs. You know, having them allowed to be used for the purpose of having people stay, but not for big events. And there is a concern about overburdening septic systems. That's on the second page of the council's letter. I'm sorry, the planning board's letter. And the suggestion is, do we limit it to, or question is, do we limit it to allow in bedrooms and or limit the occupancy to a number per bedroom? Suggesting to include the authority for the building zoning officer to inspect, to confirm sleeping arrangements are only in bedrooms and to enforce the occupancy level. So making sure that occupancy is only in the bedrooms. So you're only sleeping there. You're not sleeping on a pull-out couch in the living room. Include a requirement that each structure rented out to a tourist guest has a certificate of occupancy. For example, if the space above a detached garage is to be rented to the tourist guest, that must have a CO. So that's what's before you to decide whether or not to move this to hearing or to make any potential changes as to definition of owner occupancy or those other items.
John?
Madam Chair, first off, thank you, Mr. Vice President, for putting this forward. We have to advertise for what, 21 days?
Yep. Yeah, it's an ordinance. It's a zoning ordinance, isn't it, 21?
This is zoning, so this is 3 consecutive weeks.
Yeah, 21
Okay,
days.
so 21, so call it almost a month. My concern here is with the timing, because as we know, we are rapidly approaching an election. We may be a different body, you know, post November 5th. So I don't know. Part of me wants to say maybe we punt it back to the planning board for their feedback, and essentially the next council would be the ones to take it up, as opposed to trying to rush through something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing us as rushing through because we have had this before us numerous times in the past 3 years at least. And it's been worked on a lot. And I think, you know, this council should move forward with something. And it's already been through the planning board process, unless we make significant changes to it.
I have a question. So what this ordinance is going to do, short-term rentals have to have the owner living in the residence.
Or on the property.
Or on the property, meeting.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that either.
No, I don't agree with that. And I don't think we really, like, I have all the stuff we were doing. I don't know if we ever decided that that's how we wanted to do it.
No, and
I mean, what we discussed was the landlord, I'm gonna call it the owner, had to be so many miles away from the property, no greater than those miles, so that in an emergency, they could come over,
There was also and a designee.
or designate.
Yeah.
Also, we would have a phone number where we could reach them, because that was part of the problem, was the police were trying to call the owner and no one would answer. So, that was one of the problems in some of this. But I don't think they should be, you should just live there. I think there should be restrictions on certain areas in town that shouldn't have them. And because of parking, like Riverside is a big problem, and because of parking, and there's other areas where, like, there's one in my neighborhood where you can fit 20 cars in the parking lot, in the driveway. I think things like that, but I don't agree that it's owner occupied, that they
Right.
have to be in there.
And there were some people who owned a home and then inherited a home or bought a home, so they live here, or they live in the next town, but not necessarily in that property, on that property. Doesn't mean that they're not looking out for the best interest of that property. I'm thinking of a couple of people who came to speak with us.
And we had a problem with a couple of people who owned 3 or 4 of them, but did not live anywhere in the area. And they could not get to the property if there was something major going on. And there was no property manager here in town that could go over there. Mike?
So, and I hear what you're saying, Deb. At the same time, any property owner has the right to let out their property for more than 30 days. They can rent it to somebody for a year, 6 months, whatever. So that doesn't, this would not restrict that. And I think it's important to be clear that these are businesses. And so anything beyond this, I think we're saying that we're okay with a business entity operating in a residential area that impacts that residential area. The other piece that, so, no, I'll leave it at that.
Mike?
No, I just wanna, so it's only on for advertising. We're kinda getting we're getting to the merits of it. I understand if you don't like the underlying ordinance, that's fine, and you can deal with it. This did come from the planning board with input from Mr. Burk, so it wouldn't really necessarily go back. But unless you make major changes to it, and I will say that, yes, this is different from what the council considered a while back ago, but that's okay. But all these topics that we're having about the merits of it really should be delayed till.
Well, no, I don't want this to go out there.
But I'm just, yeah, let me just
I
finish.
don't want
If
it
it doesn't,
to go to public hearing if the majority of us don't agree with it.
But we
we're
allowed
gonna
something else to
change
go
it.
to public hearing when several people didn't,
Well, I'm-
recently, something else to go.
But this didn't come from the council and the discussions that the council had.
But that came from one council member, and it went to public hearing.
No, I'm talking about this.
I understand that, but using that logic, then we shouldn't let anything go to public hearing.
I don't, it's up to the majority. What did you?
I think if we go to public hearing with this owner occupied, we're gonna have the same people here again. They're gonna come in and say their spiel again, rightfully so.
would you benefit from that public hearing, however?
Well, what we benefited was we gave suggestions on what we wanted, but it's not in here. Because I have the.
Can I ask a question on process?
Yeah.
So, I'm assuming this is gonna be a multi-meeting issue, right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
We've already had multiple meetings.
we already have, right? But I know for what Madam President is saying, it sounds like, the bulk of what's in front of us is not what we as a group had collectively decided. So, just so I understand the process, we sent this to the planning board. The planning board coalesced and they send us back this.
No, that's not necessarily how it worked, so.
That's usually how it works, Mike.
Oh, no, I'm saying, this is not how this worked, so we.
No, but that's usually the way this way. We had public hearings, we gave you suggestions. Those suggestions were supposed to be put in a policy. And I looked at the old one and the suggestions we gave, And it's not incorporated in this.
The plan-
None of it. So, that's why I'm confused. That's why I don't understand this one, because I'll tell you right now, I vote no for this. So for it to, and I think a lot of us have concerns about it. So we're gonna go to public hearing, they're all gonna speak again. We're gonna give the suggestions we gave last time. So I'm kinda confused, like why, I don't know if this is ready for public hearing, do you all agree?
Correct.
Because,
So to move this forward, I'll make a motion that the proposed ordinance on STRs go to publicly, scheduled for public hearing.
do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Motion's been made and seconded, all those in favor? Opposed?
Yes,
So it's all mine to deal with now, I was just told, and that's fine.
Madam Chair,
I'll work with,
could we perhaps get our original suggestions back to the solicitor?
I think-
Along with, okay, along with this revision to incorporate it, so maybe red line options or something like that, so that we can then send it to public hearing?
Mike,
I have to,
do you want me to get together with?
yeah, I don't remember, I believe that the original ordinance was sent to the planning board, they did have recommendations that
Yes,
came
it
back.
was, yeah, I have it.
So they give, they've already gave us a recommendation for that.
Yeah.
This is a different ordinance, there's no question about it, but this came from the planning board. And they have a right to propose something from the planning board. You don't have to adopt it.
But the direction was never to ask them to propose it.
So I did.
Oh, okay. All right, all
I
right,
have the right to do that too, just like other people in the council have done things like that.
okay. All right, I'm not gonna argue, I just,
We can certainly revisit it. As you know, there's a lot of litigation regarding this, Narragansett passed the ordinance, there is litigation.
and I know right now it's permitted, but
Well,
it's,
not permitted.
No,
it's not,
they're not.
The town takes a position that it's not permitted in any zone. We haven't enforced it, but we think that our position is that short-term rentals are not permitted.
There's also a lot of stuff that is not permitted.
yeah, but that,
So
well,
we haven't actually enforced it.
I gotta tell you, it's happened all summer, so we're not enforcing it.
Right, we haven't been enforcing it because we said we were gonna try to work out a plan.
You gotta remember that, okay, for years and years and years and years, we've had STR. It wasn't until COVID that they started becoming a serious consideration. And believe me, every community in this country is dealing with this issue. New York City is having a hell of a time with it.
And I think there's a way to limit it, but I don't think it should be, has to be so restrictive. Is that a good way to put it? All right, all right.
I know we voted, there's a lot of good stuff in that, but I think the owner occupied kind of is a non-starter there. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but.
All right. All right, Council President deMedeiros, discussion and possible vote to increase town planner. So we're not getting any we're advertising for town planners and we're not getting anyone. Meanwhile, we're paying Ashley quite a significant amount of money, and she's only part-time, and I think there needs to be a more presence in that office. So what Chris just passed out to you is from Barrington to West Warwick, all the planner salaries. There's some very low on the scale. Right now, we are offering 87 to 90,000. I personally think we should go 110 to 120. I mean, we're spending it now, guys.
We're absolutely spending.
We're absolutely spending it now, and with all the developments that are going on right now, and everything, and with the new zoning changes, I really feel that we need to up this because we need a planner. John? Oh,
Madam Chair, I will agree with you. I think that if we're gonna spend 140 on Weston and Sampson and only have a handful of hours, every single week, why don't we spend a little bit less than that and get somebody here full-time?
I'm
So,
thinking 110 to 120.
I agree.
Depending on experience. If it's a very experienced planner, it'll be Chris's, Chris will come to us
Actually-
with what he thinks this person should make between 110 and 120.
can I Can I,
wanna go
I want to amend that.
Okay.
I think we should go, we're advertising at 87 right now to 90.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go 87 to 120.
Well, now,
It gives a range.
It gets, that's a nice wide range. It gives us the ability to put a higher
Yeah.
number out there and gives the
we're
administrator
not
the
gonna
ability to
get
go
anyone who says, "Okay,
based
I'll
on his
take
judgment.
87." Yeah, yeah, yes. And the Personnel Board, I've been to a couple of their, a meeting recently where they are telling me there's no candidates for planner. And, so we did discuss at the Personnel Board level that maybe we weren't paying enough. Yes, Jay?
And as I asked before on another one, exactly where are we going to advertise? And how?
All right, so right now, we're advertising in the Cotta Times.
That's it?
No,
No, we're not.
no.
I mean, no, I'm not trying to.
No, so, I was gonna tell you where, because
okay.
this has been a big discussion, and it's the kind of time, not anymore.
So kind of Times isn't going to get you anybody.
Yeah, all right, so tell me where we're doing it now, this changed.
Planner Association.
The National Association of Planners Association,
But do
the
we have
League
to
of
be a
Cities,
member?
the League of City and Towns.
Okay,
Those are the two primary ones, and in the Rhode Island Employment website,
Yes.
which is where everybody looks for state jobs or municipal jobs.
now, I was told the National Planner Association, we'd have to have a membership in order to do that.
So we're supposed to, but I think we were doing it through Ashley.
Ashley,
But I
Are we?
think that they've caught on to that, and I do think that we're gonna have to probably wind up with a membership with them.
Is
What would the
that-
membership cost?
I don't know, I'll have to ask Ashley.
Is that
We
a
can't be a whole
national?
lot.
Yeah, it's a
No.
national.
It's national?
It is national.
Okay. And I just want to say, Ashley has done a phenomenal
Yeah,
job,
there's
continues
there's
to
not a
do a
reflection.
phenomenal
Oh,
job.
this has nothing to do with Ashley's
She
performance.
just, she's an interim planner at 20 hours a week, and this job needs way more than that, and there's just so much going on. It's so important to be timely, because if the planning board fails to meet a deadline, it's an automatic default, and we lose on that case. So we really have to have somebody who is sharp and knows what they're doing, and a full-time person.
It is the hardest job to find a candidate for statewide right now. Statewide planning has been taking a lot of them, but I think there are about 12 communities right now looking for a planner.
Including Warren.
Yeah,
I
they-
did-
and the one that,
I did notice Warren's not even listed here.
well,
Well, Warren had ours.
I'm not
I
gonna
know,
get
but
into
she's
that.
gone, right?
Oh, she was the town administrator.
But
All
she
right.
was their planner.
Madam Chair, one more piece.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Maybe we could expand that, adding like LinkedIn, job postings too,
Yeah,
perhaps.
We could do that.
That way, all of us can kind of help spread the word.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so would someone like to make a motion? Or, I didn't really make a motion, I suggested, you want me to make the motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we bump it from the top line from 90,000 to 120.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made, second, all those in favor? Administrator Cotta, update on school casino funds, clarification from the town treasurer. I asked for this to be in here because, yes, come on up, Denise. If some of you watched the last casino meeting with the school in front of us, it was brought to our attention by the treasurer that there was a balance that they didn't overspend, but there was a balance that we did not allocate. And the school committee wanted to know where we got this and where Denise got this from. Investigation after the meeting, we found out that it came from them, that their business manager sent it to us. So I asked Denise to come to clarify it, and there was a lot of question on how are we paying these bills right now. So Denise? Is that all right, Chris, that I read this?
Oh, yeah,
okay.
absolutely, I'm sorry, yes.
No, it's all right, go ahead.
I'm trying to contact Tim to let him
Tim,
know we're
yeah.
running late. Tim, Cavazza.
Go ahead, Denise.
So which part
You
do you
wanna
want me to
read-
cover?
All right, so the letter to me, where you,
So that was the comments that I sent to everybody.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it says, okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, I sent that to
Yes,
everybody.
you
I
sent
sent
it
it
to
to school
everybody, you're right.
committee.
So explain this, where, what we allocated.
Right, so there was 3 allocations to the school department. There was the first one of $2 million. There was the second one of 1.3 million and the 124,000 for the school security. So I look at it as 3 separate allocations. And they were earmarked for 3 separate projects.
They were.
The first
And-
one
and
was a
very specific, they were.
The first allocation of the $2 million was multiple projects. Bathrooms, kitchen upgrades, there was a few small items in there, lawnmowers and a couple of other items. And the premise of all of those allocations, when did the ordinance pass that the reimbursements would go back to the school department? Was that subsequent to the first allocation?
That was done at the meeting, that was done sometime in the winter? I think it was sometime in
Right.
the winter.
Right.
Because,
But I think the conversation of that first allocation was we were gonna be able to turn that,
right,
those
and then we
funds
did-
around,
Then we wrote the ordinance and everything.
get the reimbursement, and then the council established the ordinance so that those reimbursements would go back to the school department. So the bottom line is the first round of allocation, the first year, there was very little spending. So the bulk of the spending occurred in the following year. And you have to remember that in order to submit for reimbursement, the projects have to be done and they have to be paid for. So the first $2 million, which has been spent, only 788,000 of that has been submitted for reimbursement. So only a small portion of that has come back to the town. And then you started on the second allocation of the 1.3 million, which was for the lockers and the gym. And you all know that the budget for that was in excess of $1.3 million.
It was 2 something, correct?
I'm not exactly
I
sure.
think it was
2.2?
Right. Well, what Amy Roderick said it was, 2 million.
I have 2.218 on
Okay, well,
this
that's not-
document, but
Okay, okay, yeah.
something like that. I think, so the premise in everybody's mind is, okay, the first project is going to help fund the second project and that kind of thing. But the truth is, until you can submit everything for reimbursement and receive the reimbursement and it's approved, you're not going to have the funds to backfill the second allocation of the project.
So how
So
about the $2 million originally?
that was overspent a little bit, 188,000, I think.
So how can they
182,000.
overspend that, though? If you give 2 million, that's what they spent.
I can't answer that question, other than,
Well, they have to
at-
find the 180 because we didn't give it to them.
exactly,
That's my opinion,
well,
out of their
that's up to you,
budget. Like structural, yeah,
But that's not even this year, we're going back 2 years.
right, but that bothers me.
I'm not saying it doesn't, but this is not this fiscal, like, we're talking 2
Yeah.
fiscal years ago.
So did we get a reimbursement from there?
the reimbursements are submitted annually. They're due July 15th. So the only thing to date that's been submitted from that first
Is only
bucket,
700.
it was like 778,000.
And I imagine it's because the projects weren't completed.
The projects were not complete, so they could only submit what was completed. Since then, this summer, there was about, I want to say, you know what, I don't know in total, but I know over $1 million was submitted. At least 1.2 million was submitted for
Okay.
reimbursement. But that's out of the second bucket of money. That will, actually, some of it's from the first one, the bathroom, the high school bathroom renovations. But the truth is, I don't participate in any of that, other than signing the documents to submit for the reimbursement and saying that it's been paid.
So part of the problem here.
So how about the 187? That's not,
The 182,000 that's overspent from
you
the
haven't
first year.
paid?
No, I have to pay. Well, I mean,
No, you don't.
well, I don't, but how will
No,
they
no, you
complete the
don't.
project?
If we say you have $2 million to spend and you overspend it, then you've got to figure out where the money is. I mean,
True.
this might be why deficit spending is going on the other side. But, like, no, you don't have to pay that bill. I look at it as a loan. Like, if I got a $2 million loan to do something and I overspend, well, then I have to find a way to pay that. That's my opinion. Because where are you gonna find this 187?
So
You're
the
gonna,
school department has to come up with it.
you shouldn't be overspending. I mean, you're working on a budget. Like, how did that happen?
It's a good question.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then they overspent again, you said also?
Well, here's the thing. There's two pieces to this, for us anyway. We were keeping it as separate allocations, but the requests come in, it's very difficult sometime to tell which project. I'm not a project manager.
I
But,
think they should tell you that.
well, so we've changed how we're communicating to one another, and as of sometime last year, when we submitted our reconciliation with them, we divided up the projects so that we could keep track of them by project. But it really wasn't until I got this document that I could see how they divided it all up.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you could have completions overlap and
Yes.
reimbursements overlap.
Yes.
And it's kind of hard to track that.
Yes.
And part of the problem is, we expected this to flow in a certain way.
You did, and it-
we made approvals based on reimbursements,
That weren't
which
here.
have not appeared yet and won't appear yet until
Right.
these projects are fully
Right.
completed. And we need to change that.
Yeah, I think well, this was a trial run, I guess.
Right,
But I don't think when we say, yes, you can use the reimbursement, we need to ask Denise what we got back
Right.
and say that's the only thing that's available.
Right, but
So
we,
reimbursements should only be used for future projects.
Right.
What we
Which-
approve, they should have to expend the entirety of that project, because the issue is they can't get a reimbursement until it's paid for.
Right, I
Exactly.
agree.
So we can't wait for a reimbursement for
Right,
something
but
that,
that was only the second project.
Right.
The first project, we didn't take from the reimbursement. It was
Right.
that second project.
right, it was a second
that-
allocation.
That they wanted a lot of money for the gym and had gone up in price. And we said, no, you're only getting this.
but I think the premise was
Reimbursement.
the first project's reimbursement was going
Yes,
to,
right.
but
But we have to have cash in hand.
I think
But
from
you're
now
working
there
on the
has to be
second
cash in hand.
project, and you're dispersing the funds, and you have to complete it in order to submit that.
Right.
And you can't complete it without paying for it.
But in my opinion, if you overspend, we didn't approve 187 to come out of casino. So it
Right.
can't come out of the casino money. And it can't come out of the reimbursement because we didn't approve it. So I don't know how the rest of you feel.
Didn't get paid from gaming?
Well,
It didn't get paid from gaming today.
Yes.
You
it
already
did.
So our gaming
paid from
balance
their
is less than we
No, it
thought.
got paid from gaming.
No, it's included in there. Like, I've included that.
I mean, I think one of the ways to address this, since this was a learning curve going forward, is anything that they next submit to us, we subtract that out. If they want 2 million, we subtract out 186. And
That's all we get, huh?
So you'd be, okay.
I really have a problem with this. I mean,
Well, I do too,
I,
especially
like,
for-
the town doesn't, like, if we all did this, we'd all be in a lot of trouble. Like, this
You're
is-
right,
Like, come on.
So.
One of the
I'll
things
give
you
a-
have to
a-
keep in mind
My-
is,
Councilor Burke gave us a very good example when we did some things like for the town hall, right? There were all, maybe 8 items. And his suggestion was, if we did the windows and we figured, when we put the budget in, it was 10,000 and they came in at 7, and then we're gonna do the carpet, and we figured it was 5 and it came in at 6. You could stay within that
Yes.
to adjust.
I have no
But you
problem
couldn't
with
go
that.
over the amount to do something. Otherwise, I would have to come back.
Right, because if we told Chris you can take so much from the casino money to do a project, and then he overspends by 200,000, say, Sooner or later, we're gonna run out, there's gonna be a problem.
So, Madam Chair, that raises a question. If we have to vote to approve funding, and this overage was simply paid, I don't blame you, don't we have to vote to approve this overage?
Yeah.
Yep.
To get
Or
paid.
figure out where it
We
comes
really
from?
do.
But we don't,
But,
because we
but I,
don't know about it.
but I think
No, and I
if we,
think,
but
I
if we
think-
do
Not her
now,
I think what they have to do is give us $187,000 to go back in the casino fund.
I agree.
That's what I think.
So
Or
I
you
did talk to
take
the,
part of the reimbursement.
I did talk to the superintendent.
That's
Or
already
we take part of their reimbursement.
Chris?
I did talk to the superintendent about this because he had some issues about even the monies that we just recently allocated, that he went out to bid and it came in cheaper and he wanted to know, could he
I don't
do
even
other
wanna go
projects with it?
there.
And I said, no, because the next
I
item
know
that
that
comes,
story.
the next item that comes up on your agenda is the actual resolution. Everything is done by a resolution, so we're not allowed to veer from that resolution. So he's anticipating coming before you at the next gaming
Yeah.
to be fully explanatory as to what's happening. So,
So the bottom line here
But
is, we-
he could have explained it that night, and he acted like he didn't know it.
Well,
And
I-
there was an email that went to him. So,
Well,
I don't know
know,
what to say.
the school is a department like any other department. We allocate a budget to a department. They're expected to remain within that budget. If they need more money, they're expected to come here and ask for it. I don't see why this department should be any different.
and I think we all agree with that, but I think this was a learning curve, like Mike said. This was something new. It
No,
was
but that's
casino-
not the 2 million. That was not nothing new.
But,
The reimbursement part of the second allocation,
Right.
yes. But not the $2 million where you overspent by almost 200,000.
no, but then they need to come back and say, it overran, or what do we cut back?
Or they
how
need
do
to
we-
cut back.
Or how do we, how do we accommodate for that
The best-
overage?
The best way to explain this is I was chairman of the school board when we got bonds. And we had a certain amount that the town gave us. And we didn't overspend. We stayed in within a budget. And many times they came to the school committee and said, we're not gonna be able to buy this rug.
Air
we're gonna do
conditioners.
This rug, or whatever, or we're gonna give it to air conditioners because this is the same thing as receiving a bond. And if you overspend your bond, where do you get the money? Like, John?
Perhaps the project manager has to report periodically, because just looking at the first
Yeah.
allocation, all of the things that were not really project-related were all purchased at the get-go. And then the project starts and the disbursements are made. And
Yeah.
if this project overruns, they're not being
Yeah.
communicated.
So, I have a question, just so I understand this. So we had that $182,000 overage, right? Which you got the bill for, you paid. It
Well,
seemed,
here's the thing, like, looking at this, excuse me for interrupting.
Yeah.
But, there was $471,000 left. And then we get the final bill for the bathrooms is $590. So I paid it because it was the last bill to be paid. And basically, this has to be paid to be able to be submitted for reimbursement. So
So suppose we take
I
it out.
suppose I didn't feel like I had to come before the council to ask permission, but perhaps that's what we have to do next time.
I wasn't saying that you were doing anything wrong.
No,
I
that's
was
not at
saying-
all, that's not at all what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
I was
think-
simply saying if
They
it's a
should've
vote to
reported.
approve it,
They
it
should've
should be
came
a.
to us.
Yeah.
And said, look, we have a problem. Our bill is a little higher. What do you want us to do?
Well,
But
I
like-
think at that point that all happened, if you saw the email that had gone previous to my email, was the business manager was departing, had come in to do all of this paperwork, and it was kind of like the
Oops,
11th
we
hour.
spent- yeah.
And, I've got to get these bills paid so that
All right.
these reimbursements can be submitted.
Well, we're gonna have a casino meeting probably the end of September. I'm thinking the last week. I'm gonna look at schedules. And we need to discuss this with them. And really, I think that 187 should come out of their reimbursement that they're getting for some project. And not the casino money. That's my opinion. Because you spent the casino money on it.
Yes.
You didn't allocate it.
So this whole process that we have, this was done by ordinance, correct?
Correct.
So it would seem to me that it might be worthwhile for us to potentially look at changing the ordinance so that if there's a scenario where there is a cost run over, we can write the check because we don't expend the casino dollars until the following year. And then whatever that delta is, once they get the reimbursement, is automatically recouped by the town.
That's what I was kind of.
So,
Well, the ordinance currently states in 2023 that any reimbursements to the schools
correct.
goes back to the school.
So we'd have
Yeah, but
to
we're
amend
still
the
in charge of
ordinance.
that.
We're still in charge of it, but we're still there. But
Yes, but we'd have,
Unless we tell them.
what I'm saying is that we'd have to amend the ordinance to make the casino fund whole for essentially being the short-term stopgap for that overrun.
Right.
And then at least you have eyes-on visibility as far as what's going on, and this council would be apprised, because it
I think as
it seems like we just didn't
stands now,
have the information, I think was really the issue here, and nor was our treasurer given the information.
Do they have their financial person in place now?
They
They're
just
working on
hired.
it.
I
So
believe
you-
they're
you
about to
haven't-
hire someone.
Oh,
Are
I've,
these
I've,
in-
I've
Yes,
talked to him.
yes.
Mhm.
They have hired someone. That's the
the
rumor.
procedure's set out in the ordinance already.
Yes, because, John, we can at any point, we're in charge of the reimbursement also. So at any point, we can just vote to move it to the casino money.
What we did do, put it in a restricted account for the school. So school money coming back goes to a school restricted account. But it does, the next step, it says the council from that account can make further appropriations at the request of the school.
Yeah.
But we can't, but we, in this process, we cannot make the.
It has to be
the-
at the request of the school.
But it has to be the request of the school, and it goes into a restricted
Yes, we
account
need to
specifically for
change
the
that.
school. We can't go and get the $182,000 back to make this, in theory, like this current fiscal year's casino dollars whole,
I see what you're saying, John.
But
Unless the
unless the school says that,
unless the school comes and asks to do it, but that's not an effective
That's
process.
what they should have done, really.
We said no until we get our 180.
They should have asked anyway.
It's all set out at 2-130. Take a look at that.
So what we have to do is just,
I'm not so sure the ordinance needs amended.
all right, okay.
Madam Treasurer, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Anything else?
No.
You are absolutely always receptive when I need it.
And always on top of it.
So we are moving to G, discussion and possible vote to approve resolution 2024-0013, appropriating funds from the Casino Special Revenue Fund. Specifically, this is looking at fiscal year 2023, school capital replace front doors at Pecasset, $55,000. School capital replace doors 2 and 5 at Tiverton Middle, $50,000. School capital replace front cafeteria and back doors at Ranger, $150,000. Fire department capital lease ladder truck, approximately $715,895.42. That's a good approximation. And then municipal street light conversion, approximately $169,555,065. And there's an asterisk. The town treasurer is authorized to expend additional casino funds to ensure balance is paid in full for the fire department and for the lighting.
So just to explain that, the treasurer gave me, these are potential payoffs. The exact number's not known to the date you actually pay because of
Yep.
interest and whatnot, so that's why we put a little wiggle room in that for her.
Makes
But
sense.
it's authorized her to do so.
Section 2, prior appropriations, all appropriations previously made as indicated on the attached Exhibit A are ratified and approved. For the project and fiscal year as indicated, we had already done those. We'd never put them in the ordinance, in the resolution. Section 3, unspent or excess revenue. If there are any funds left unspent for the projects listed under Section 1 and Section 2, the remaining funds shall be returned to the Casino Gaming Special Revenue Fund for future appropriations, and the resolution takes effect upon passage. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve Resolution 2024-0013, appropriating funds from the Casino Special Revenue Fund.
Do I have a second? Multiple seconds, any discussion? Just pick one. Dave Paul. No, hearing no discussion, all those in favor? Passes unanimously. Town Administrator, Police Chief, discussion and possible vote to approve budget transfers, and I'm not gonna read all these items, but they're fuel transfers to clothing, and in-service and uniforms and auto and operations, taser transfer to software, electric to heat, education transfers to water and supplies, taser to IT, and education to station maintenance.
So these close out the red line items of the annual budget. We've done every other department except for the police department. The police chief was a little tied up with some matters, and we're just now getting his department closed out so we can finish up with the auditors this year.
So this is for the last budget.
Last
budget cycle.
fiscal year.
Motion to approve the transfers as requested by the administrator.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye, schedule public hearing for amendments to the comprehensive plan's future land use map, specifically designation of lots in the waterfront-related uses, and to authorize advertising for the same. Do we want to take I and J and K together since they're all related? Or
Yeah.
can we do those all together?
Yeah,
We
so,
need to? Yeah.
let me just explain this. So, the planning board has been working on this, and the final document is not gonna be available till tomorrow. But they wanted to, once they finalize it tomorrow and not make any changes, because they'll have to come back to us if anything drastically changed, they wanted to advertise right after tomorrow, so we can get this going. I asked Trish Hilton if Todd could give us, or somebody could give us, kind of a synopsis of what's going on. Trish is here in case you have any questions. It's just asked to go out for public hearing. If anything happens at the planning board that they feel it needs to come back to us, it will. Is that correct, Trish? Yeah. Trish is the vice president, the vice chairman. Yes.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we schedule the public hearing for items A, J, and K as requested.
I, J, and K.
Once the clerk gets the finalized documents.
I, J, and K.
I, J, and K.
Yeah.
You said A.
No, I
It
said K.
sounded like, well, it was my hearing.
Well, it
My
was your
hearing that-
accent.
my
It's the
hearing
Fall
that-
River accent, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know.
Second.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah.
I have a second. Any further discussion from the council? Everyone understands what's happening?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor? Okay. All right, and we're on to executive session. I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session. Tiverton Administrator, Rhode Island, General Law 4246585, discussion and possible vote on sale and disposition of publicly held property in the Tiverton Industrial Park. B, Town Administrator, discussion and possible vote on sale, disposition of publicly held property in the industrial park. C, Town Administrator, Rhode Island General Law 46582, collective bargaining, update IAFF, Local 1703, negotiations, Tiverton Fire. Town Solicitor, Rhode Island General Law 4246582, litigation, Eagleville Road Realty LLC v. Collins, NC-2014-218, settlement negotiations.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and second. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 Yes.